just to give him a quick update.
Okay.
And then everything else, Mr. Willie, everybody else.
Anybody at 5?
Yes. Lori Seacrest and
Okay.
Deborah Hanson, I believe.
Okay.
I highlighted it for
Where's the Mayoral Proclamation?
right there.
And we have it in big letters.
Right here for you.
There we go, large font. Thank
Yep,
you.
And then here's the information on the event itself.
Okay.
If you want to speak to it, you can. If not,
Okay.
don't have to. Anything else?
No? What is this?
This is the ordinance that they're going to amend the agenda for. I
Oh.
gave you an amended agenda.
Okay.
Nobody else has this. So once, because I wanted you to be able to call for the motion right here.
Okay.
So once that happens, I'm going to pass down a new cheat sheet for everybody so that they have what you have.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's Gene's pen right there.
Not anymore.
If I find
Whatever.
another one, you can have it.
No, I got it.
Okay.
I got pens today. All right. Everybody ready? Well, good evening and welcome to the September 5th Federal Way City Council meeting. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, welcome. It's been a little while since we've had our last council meeting. It's great to see a good crowd here, and we've got quite a number of important business items. First, I will turn it over to a motion to amend the agenda by Deputy Mayor Burbidge. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I move to amend the agenda to add a new Section 7 entitled Ordinance with a new item 7A to consider a proposed ordinance imposing a 12-month moratorium on self-service storage facilities in the city and to renumber the remaining sections accordingly.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion to amend the agenda to add the aforesaid item, and there's a second. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor of adding this item?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matter passes unanimously. It'll be added. Okay, now, presentations. First, we have a mayoral proclamation, Mayor's Day of Concern, September 16th, and I will, at this time, ask Terry Turner with the Multi-Service Center to come forward, and I've got a proclamation and some information. Mayor's Day of Concern for the Hungry, September 16th, 2017. Whereas the City of Federal Way recognizes adequate nutrition as a basic goal for each citizen, and whereas it is our fundamental belief that no parent should have to send a child to school hungry, no baby should be without the comfort of the feedings needed for mental and physical growth, no elderly person's health should be jeopardized by lack of appropriate foods, and whereas the Multi-Service Center Food Bank, emergency and hot meal programs, local churches, social services organizations, and hundreds of volunteers are striving each day to stem the rising tide of hunger, but still need more help. And whereas many Federal Way residents have the ability to impact hunger in their community through donations of food, and whereas we will strive to raise awareness and encourage our citizens to donate food to the hungry as winter approaches, and their resources must be stretched to cover increasing fuel, electricity, and rental cost, leaving even less money for monthly food purchases. And whereas the Emergency Feeding Program of Seattle and King County coordinates an annual food drive to help support the efforts of their program in the area's food banks in fighting hunger, which will be held at grocery stores throughout King County on Saturday, September 16, 2017. Now, therefore, I, the undersigned mayor of the City of Federal Way, do hereby proclaim September 16, 2017 as Mayor's Day of Concern for the Hungry in the City of Federal Way, and strongly encourage all citizens to join the Emergency Feeding Program and the Multi-Service Center to nourish those who are hungry. Signed this 5th day of September, 2017. And I'll bring it down.
I'd like to thank the city council and the mayor and everyone here for, Federal Way has always been a huge supporter of the multi-service center in general and the food bank in particular. So we appreciate all your help. This September gets to sort of be a quiet time before the holidays, so it's a perfect time to be having a food drive and adding food, because as he said, there's kids going back to school, there's always something. But we appreciate your help, and I look forward to seeing all of you on the 16th at your local grocery store. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you, Terry. So on Saturday, September 16th, so not this Saturday, but a week from this Saturday, we'll be at the following locations. The Fred Meyer in Twin Lakes, that's off 21st Avenue. The Walmart on 16th Avenue, that's 34520 16th Avenue. The Walmart on 314th near Pacific Highway. And the Grocery Outlet at 32945 Pacific Highway South. So, and if you have any questions about that, Jerry Lynn Clark, who is the assistant for the council and who works here at the city, can be reached at 253-835-2401. That's 835-2401. We hope to see you there. This is a program that's been ongoing for a number of years, and it really helps out the needy in our community. Okay, now we'll turn over to the proclamation for National Recovery Month, September. We've got Deputy Mayor Burbridge to Marie Williams Sweet and the Hospital and Mental Health Residential Coordinator with King County Behavioral Health and Rental Recovery Division. Deputy Mayor?
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to invite Mario Williams-Sweet to come to the podium to receive the proclamation after I read it. Thank you very much. Whereas behavioral health is an essential part of health and one's overall wellness, and the prevention, treatment, and recovery of mental and/or substance abuse disorders are effective for those in our area and around the nation. And whereas preventing along with overcoming mental and/or substance use disorders is essential to achieving healthy lifestyles, both physically and emotionally. And whereas we must encourage relatives and friends of individuals with mental and/or substance use disorders to implement preventive measures, recognize the signs of a problem, and guide those in need to appropriate treatment and recovery support services. And whereas in 2015, 2.3 million people aged 12 and older received specialty treatment for a substance use disorder, and 43.4 million adults age 18 and older have a type of mental illness, according to the 2015 National Survey on Drug Use and Health. Given the serious nature of the public health problem, we must continue to reach the millions more who need help. And whereas to help more people achieve and sustain long-term recovery, the United States Department of Health and Human Services, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, and the City of Federal Way invite all residents to participate in National Recovery Month. And now therefore we, the undersigned mayor and city council of the City of Federal Way, do hereby proclaim September 2017 as National Recovery Month and call upon our community to observe this month with appropriate programs, activities, and ceremonies. Signed this 5th day of September 2017, the Federal Way Mayor and City Council.
On behalf of the people in recovery living in King County Behavioral Health and Recovery Division, and the citizens of Federal Way, we thank you for your leadership, support for mental health and substance use recovery, and for proclaiming September 2017 as National Recovery Month. We also want to recognize people in recovery at our local agency partners who provide prevention, intervention, treatment, and support to people and families who are seeking recovery from mental health and substance use issues. Your recognition of Recovery Month is important as we join together to promote recovery, celebrate those in treatment and in recovery, and continue to educate our communities about how to overcome the stigma and discrimination related to substance abuse disorders and mental illness. As we do this, we build great quality of life for ourselves, our families, our neighbors, and our community of Federal Way. Thank you, Mayor and honorable council members, for acknowledging and celebrating Recovery Month.
Thank you, Mario. Well said. Thank you very much. All right. Next, we've got Proclamation Constitution Week, September 17th through the 23rd. Deputy Mayor Burbidge. Oh, I'm sorry.
Excuse me. Councilmember Deanie Duclos is going to present this proclamation.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Little switch here, so. I'd like to invite Sally Jarvis to come up to the podium, and I'll read the proclamation and then bring it down to you. Whereas September 17, 2017 marks the 230th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. Whereas it's fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document and the anniversary of its creation, and wherever it is fitting and proper to officially recognize the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915, signed by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1956, guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th as Constitution Day. Whereas celebrations are to emphasize citizens' responsibility for protecting and defending the Constitution as we preserve it for posterity, to inform the people that the Constitution is the basis for Americans' great heritage and the foundation of our way of life, and to encourage the study of historical events which led to the framing of the Constitution in September 17, 1870. I wasn't there then, but now therefore, we, the undersigned Mayor and City Council of the City of Federal Way, do hereby proclaim September 17th through the 23rd, 2017 to be Constitution Week in Federal Way, and ask our citizens, not just our citizens, but the citizens of this country, in my effect, to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 and reflect on our heritage of freedom. This is signed on the 9th day of September by the Mayor and all council members. I'll bring that down to you, and thank you.
As she just stated, this is the 62nd anniversary of Constitution Week. The Daughters of the American Revolution first made its own resolution for Constitution Week, which was adopted in April 1955, and it then sent a petition to Congress along with a copy of its resolution. And on June 7, 1955, the resolution was discussed in the Senate. Following passage of the resolution by both houses of Congress, President Eisenhower issued his proclamation, the very first one, on August 19, 1955. The first observance of Constitution Week was so successful that on January 5th, a senator introduced a Senate joint resolution to have the President designate September 17th through 23rd annually as Constitution Week. This resolution was adopted on July 23rd, 1956, and signed into public law. Since the Constitution is the basis for all government, really, in the United States, it is fitting that we stop and remember those people who took that historic step and gave us this great document. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're now the oldest constitutional democracy in the world, thanks to all the work that was done in that sweltering hot September room, in a room actually probably not much bigger than the room we're in right now. So thank you, Ms. Jarvis. All right. Okay. Mayor's emerging issues and report. Back to school safety reminders. Chief Hwang.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Burbidge, members of the council. I've been asked to provide a brief back-to-school presentation with the first day of school being tomorrow. It is incumbent on all of us to keep our children safe, and I want to remind drivers to be careful around schools, at crosswalks, and near school buses, particularly this coming week. When you're in a school zone, when there's lights flashing, or there's a sign that says when children are present during school hours, the speed limit is 20 miles per hour. I know we have some school zones that are 35 miles an hour. It's really sometimes tough and difficult for motors to slow down to 20, but it's very important that we do slow down, and particularly in school zones. Always follow the direction of the cross guard and be courteous to them. Not all motors sometimes obey crossing guards. We also take extra care when we're around school zones, playgrounds, or parks in all residential areas. And avoid distracted driving. Number one cause for accidents is inattention, distracted driving. It's important to be disciplined and follow the rules, particularly with school starting tomorrow. Around school buses, never pass a school bus when the lights are flashing from behind, or never in a two-lane roadway. On a multiple lane road, a 4-lane, for example, it is okay to pass on the opposite side, but proceed with caution. The bus drivers will never, the children will never cross on multiple lane roadways, so it is permissible to cross, but proceed with caution. But always stop on a 2-lane road. If you do stop near a school bus, keep your distance, minimum 20 feet or further, keep your distance. And sometimes children unnecessarily or unknowingly take risk, so we need to be particularly careful around school buses. Our school zone photo enforcement will be activated starting tomorrow, and we'll also have strong presence of officers in school zones. And so I just want to remind everyone, sometimes we take driving for granted, and it is the most dangerous thing that most of us do every single day. So hopefully this is a good reminder for everyone.
Thank you, Chief. That's very important to know and to remember. We actually, it's just a very important thing to remember, and we all just get busy with our cars. So thank you very much. All right, Chief Hwang, can you talk about the Kids Corner cleanup, please?
Sure. As a result of increased complaints from business owners in the area of South 36th and 13th Avenue South, we began working with other stakeholders to mitigate some of the issues that our business owners are facing in that area. We are working towards cleaning up a homeless camp on the south side of 336th, and there is a direct correlation between the day center and the complaints that we are receiving from that area. Some of the problems include drug activity, thefts, burglary, trespassing, and we've had fire incidents just east of the Kids Corner apartments from the homeless encampment. We have a meeting scheduled in the near future with property owners in that area, and our goal is to clean up the garbage and debris that's located in the wooded area off of 336. The community-oriented policing efforts and objectives are to reduce crime, prevent victimization of our citizens and business owners in the area, and addressing the environmental concerns by protecting the sensitive wetland in the wooded area located there. We're hoping to have some positive impacts. I think we're having some positive results now. We're hoping to have more positive impacts in the upcoming weeks. Be willing to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Council, are there any questions about the homeless encampment cleanup? All right, thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, now report on emergency management or FEMA training, Emmitsburg, Maryland. We've got Emergency Manager Ray Gross.
So good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, residents. My name is Ray Gross. I'm the emergency manager for the city. Last week, we took part in a week-long FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency course. It was held back in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And they kind of put us through some of the paces. The focus was on recovery. And I wish to thank the mayor for his dedication, ensuring that we made it through and got there and took it serious. I want to thank the city directors for those who attended, and as well as bringing some key staff members to it. It's a program that FEMA only offers about 12 communities a year, so we're very fortunate to attend. This is our second time going back. The first time we went back in 2009, focused on response, did very well, and we were able to go back this time in 2017 to focus on recovery. So a community-specific integrated emergency management course is the name of what we took. Again, it's about a 2-year-long process working up to this week. A lot of training that conducted here, plan review, a lot of behind-the-stage work, coordinating all the logistics of getting about 64 people from the West Coast to the East Coast. With that, we had, I want to say, about 64 people from the following agencies that went back with us. And I want to say this is probably our biggest strength here, is the relationships between these organizations. You don't see this very often amongst organizations, but we had 64 people go from the whole spectrum of staffing all the way to some volunteers. We had people from the City of Federal Way, the City of Des Moines, Federal Way Public Schools, Lake Haven Water Sewer District, St. Francis Hospital, South King Fire and Rescue. We had a person from our local amateur radio club and about 7 members of our local community emergency response team. So a good cross-spectrum of people representing probably all aspects of what it would take to deal with an event. The scenarios we were working under, a 7.2 shallow earthquake along the Tacoma Fault System right after Thanksgiving, so we had a pretty significant winter weather event as well. These are some of the generic topics that we covered. They're all spectrums of emergency management areas. If you've been watching the news, in real life, Houston is touching on a lot of these topics. So we had instructors that easily had 30 plus years of experience. They brought a lot of real life experience to the course, which we're going to benefit from. And Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of that week, we had some lecture, but most of the day was involved in these types of exercises. We had 3 tabletop exercises, 1 per day, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We focused on response to recovery. That was in follow-up to the 2009 Emmitsburg trip, which was just response. So that was the first, or that Tuesday. Wednesday, we did tabletop exercise 2, which was short-term recovery. And then Thursday, we did tabletop exercise 3, which was long-term recovery. And a tabletop exercise is just a scenario-based, facilitated discussion. So we had a scenario kind of driving the answers to various questions that our FEMA instructors would pose to us. If I were to grade our performance, I'd give us a solid B. Some of the things that came out of it that we're going to begin working on, we do have to file a former after-action report to FEMA. This is just describing what we think went well, some key areas that we might want to focus on, as well as an improvement plan to address those identified areas. Our comprehensive emergency management plan got fairly vetted through the tabletop exercises. There are some key areas that probably do have to be reviewed just based on the development of our area. So updating the plan, going to form hopefully some work groups. So it's not just me creating a plan. We'll have the people that would actually be using the plan, helping to write the plan. Some areas that definitely don't need to be shored up to ensure that we can respond and recover. Looking at fuel consumption as well as storage capacity in the area and how we might harden what we have here as well as develop plans to get fuel into the area. Information technology, develop redundancies and hardening of our current systems. We had some IT folks back with us, and that was a pretty, I want to say, one of the showstoppers there is just how vulnerable our organizations are if those networks were to go down. A couple other things, always finance. Once response is done, it always eventually comes back to finance. How we don't pay for it, where's the money coming from, and even small events like a little severe winter weather event could be in the high hundreds of thousands, if not borderline millions of dollars, let alone a significant earthquake in our area. And probably the keystone take back from it is developing a core recovery task force. So we have a core emergency operations center team that would deal with response, but right along with response, we need a team that's dedicated to recovery so we can get back to whatever the new normal is as soon as possible. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'll be more than happy to take any questions.
Well, I do want to say, Ray, you prepared everybody. We were very well prepared. The FEMA instructors who have been doing this for well over, several of them for well over 30, 35 years, and some of those same instructors had been with our city 8 years ago when we went back. They were all very impressed with the level of preparation, so thank you, Ray, for getting us all prepared. These are the kinds of things, as Houston, unfortunately, and many communities in our country have noticed, these things come without warning. And it's so important to have these things, these systems in place to know exactly how to activate an emergency operations center, exactly how you get into a response phase, exactly when does that transition to a recovery phase. And it's something that Ray and I have been working on. The EOC meetings have been occurring here. An EOC, if it occurred in the city of Federal Way, would actually be taking place in this very building. And so we're setting in redundancies to make sure that there will not be a failure in this community if a natural disaster or some sort of disaster strikes our community. So, Ray, I really appreciate all your help. And it was great to see representatives from not just the city of Federal Way, but the fire department, Lake Haven, schools, the city of Des Moines having their mayor and city manager there, the St. Francis Hospital and those folks and the CERT teams. So it was really a great opportunity to get to know these people better and to really start drilling down into the details about how we would respond as a community. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Ray, I also want to pass on my thanks and appreciation. I know that you and I have met here and there to discuss such topics. And, when I was an AmeriCorps member, I know you know this already, but for the sake of the public, I was also a CERT member, and I value that program quite a bit. And just appreciate all the training and the insight that you've had in our community, and certainly it's a sensitive time in the nation, and so this becomes that much more valuable. So I just want to take the time to acknowledge and personally thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kopech.
Ray, I understand, I actually have two questions. The first one is I understand there were some scenarios that you guys worked around, and I'd like to explain to the community what that was, and also what the number one takeaway for anyone listening tonight or here to take away from a piece of knowledge that they can take with them that will actually help them to be prepared for the disaster that you guys practiced around, but also any other disasters that happen.
Okay, so the tabletop exercises were based on a scenario that crossed all three exercises. The first tabletop exercise, which focused on response, transitioning to recovery, was based on a 7.2 earthquake along the Tacoma Fault system, which runs through our community here. It happened right around Thanksgiving time, so reduced staff, people on holiday, that sort of thing. So right along with the earthquake, we had a pretty severe winter weather forecast, as well as a potential tsunami threat due to a landslide potential on the west side of the Sound. So that scenario kind of drove all three tabletops. The first tabletop was about 3 days into the event, so the tail end of what we would call response, transitioning into recovery. Tabletop exercise 2 which was short-term recovery, was from about, the 4th day until about 2 weeks out. So that's just getting the essentials back together again so our community could survive. And then the last tabletop, which was that Thursday, was long-term recovery. So it was from the end of that 2 weeks out to about 3 or 4 months, just for the exercise. In real life, it'd probably be several years before we're fully back. So that was the scenario that drove the questions. We kind of had 3 groups. We had a policy group with electeds from all those organizations. We had the Emergency Operations Center and Department Operations Center group, which is the EOC, DOC group. And again, it's the next layer down, so senior management and other subject matter experts would fill those roles. And then we had a new group, the Recovery Task Force, and a lot of those people kind of got thrown into the deep end as far as, because it was a brand new concept we were testing. So that was the scenario as well as the various players. To get to your second question about the biggest takeaway for people who are here tonight or watching TV, that sort of thing, is know that your government takes its core responsibility extremely serious, and that's the safety of our community and residents. For us to send 64 people across the country for a week, I think demonstrates that dedication to that core responsibility. And then lastly, at the end of the day, the individual needs to ensure that they're prepared, as well as whoever they're in their residence, their family or extended family, that sort of thing. Because government can't do everything for everybody. If it could, it wouldn't be an emergency. So the individuals, just like people in Texas are learning, have a part to play in preparedness.
Ray, what would that preparedness look like?
So the key thing is, I want to say over the last 2 years, Washington State did a Cascadia Rising subduction zone earthquake exercise. And with that, there's always been the motto of 3 days, 3 ways of preparedness. Knowing the threats to our community, it's kind of going beyond 3 days, looking more to 14 days, and that's just the essentials. So whatever prescription medications, food, water, just the essentials, cash, training, either first aid, CPR, CERT type skills, which we offer training here, which is free. So accomplishing that, going to go a long way keeping yourself and whoever your immediate family is well prepared.
And we'll be planning some outreach to the community about exactly how to plan for this kind of thing. We were talking about this, I think, as for the past year and a half, we've been talking about some outreach that we'll be doing to make sure that people can prepare, to know about our AM radio station and the like. Councilmember Duclo and then Councilmember Hunt.
Several years ago, when I was at the Multi-Service Center, there was training that was done around here for all of us, and I think some of it was done over here at City Hall, and we actually had scenarios that we acted out, and then we brought that back to our workplace and did it with our people, and how much food you need to have, what kind of things you need to have, because you're not going to have running water, you're not going to have this and everything. But it was something like that, again, might be very, very helpful. I know I learned a lot and put a lot of things in my house that I didn't have before, even an emergency radio.
That's right.
To hear, to get information when everything else is down. You'd have an emergency radio. So
Right.
I think it would be good to do that again sometime this coming year or whatever. But
That's part of the after-action follow-up.
Yeah.
What we'll be doing is meeting with staff directors and also deeper into the staff to set up expectations about, what the expectations are of the staff here, all of the staff members who may be called into service on different kinds of things with reassignments. But these are the kinds of things you need to plan for well in advance that just step in automatically. But we need to let people know exactly, what steps they need to take.
and that's the big thing is communicating ahead of time so people can at least start thinking about something that might happen. Because we did have an earthquake here one time. It didn't knock us out very long, but a major quake or something could put us down for quite some time. And people should we should prepare some kind of list of something on the amount of canned goods and different things that they need to keep on hand. They're not going to have any heat or running water, so then you're going to have bottled water that can be saved.
That's right.
If we could put out a message like that in a folder or something for people, I think that would be very helpful.
We're thinking about sending out a postcard, some sort of mailer, letting people know that, so they'll have that, and they'll be told to retain that. Councilmember Honda, and then Deputy Mayor Burbidge.
Thank you. Several years ago, I think when our school superintendent was Mr. Vander Ark, I served on an 18-month committee on emergency preparedness, and we worked on many different things that could happen in our schools. But we had the schools store 3 days worth of supplies for the kids. So if today we need 14 days worth of supplies, are the schools going to do that? How are they going to do that? How can they afford to do that? And will all the staff be notified of where those supplies are? And will City Hall and our city buildings also be prepared for 14 days?
Well, to answer your last question first, is under the mayor's direction, we have already increased the EOC supplies up to about a 14-day period. So the EOC staff, and everyone that supports the EOC will at least have meals ready to eat and or water available. I can't formally speak for the school district, but if they're at a 3-day level of supplies for being able to handle the children under their care for 3 days, I think that's more than enough reasonable time for a parent to work their way to that school and pick up their child. So I would not assume that the school district, and again, I'm not speaking for them, but I think a 3-day supply is more than reasonable enough time for a family member to pick up the student there. And lastly, for individual residents, I would still encourage them to have a 14-day supply at their home, maybe even some of that at their place of employment. So hopefully that addresses your questions.
All right. Deputy Mayor Burbidge.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Ray, and I want to extend appreciation also to all who attended the program in Emmitsburg. I just want to encourage individual people, though, to consider signing up for the CERT training, the Citizen Emergency Response Training Program. A number of years ago, I attended and helped give out certificates to graduates from those programs in conjunction with the involvement of AmeriCorps. And it was always apparent to me how much dedication there was among the people who had attended those sessions and how intent they were on learning well and being ready to use what they had learned. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Ray. Great job.
Thank you.
All right. The last thing I didn't mention when Ray was there, what we'll do is Ray and I will go over an after-action report on this as well and make sure that our final plans are adjusted accordingly. Okay, so now report on the Performing Arts and Event Center ribbon cutting ceremony and public grand opening on 8/18. Theresa.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. It's my pleasure to give you an update on our ribbon cutting and Community Day, which it seems like it was just yesterday, but it was actually a couple weeks ago, August 19th. Thank you for everyone that came out. We probably had close to 900 people there for the ribbon cutting. It was spectacular. It was, I couldn't have asked for a better day. Couldn't have asked for better weather. This is a picture from the drone as we were getting ready, and we have the giant ribbon all the way around the building and a big giant ribbon on the front door. And then there we are with the mayor speaking in the middle of our ribbon cutting ceremony, which was very well done. And shout out to the Boy Scouts. that did a very fine job of presenting the colors. I was very impressed with them. And there we are, cutting the ribbon, young man cutting the ribbon there, and all of our council, giant bow on the front door. It was just a wonderful day, and then we opened the doors, and everyone came in, and we had, as I've mentioned previously, all the community groups on the stage, rotating on the stage. We had Tacoma City Ballet in the lobby, and various groups in the lobby, and then we had lectures all day in one of the Paquette room, and the FWCPA room was staged as a mock wedding reception, so everyone can get a sense of what it would be like to have an event there in the space. So there's all our characters from the ballet. And this is, they were representing the Federal Way Youth Symphony. This is their coaches. They were there in the lobby playing because the Federal Way Youth Symphony, bless their hearts, couldn't participate that day. They were in Korea. So they were performing in Korea. So we had them represented. They were very well represented. And there is Jet Cities on the stage. And I have to tell a little story. So everybody came in. It was a great day. At about, 10 minutes to 3, the lobby had kind of quieted down, and I thought, I kind of expected that. It's open all day till 5, and, it would quiet down a little bit. I think I'm going to take a minute and go in the theater. And I went in, and there were 600 people in the theater watching the performances. And I was like, oh, everyone's in here. So anyways, it was a great day. I'm so happy, and thank you, everyone who came out. And then, of course, this weekend, I'm going to go right into the next one. We have our fundraiser with the Federal Way Performing Arts Foundation of production of Rain. We have dinner at 5 o'clock, and the dinner is sold out, but there are still a few balcony seats left. And trust me, there are not, you saw the picture, there's not really a bad seat in the house. And I know everyone says that, but it's really true. If you came to grand opening, there really isn't a bad seat in the house. So,
with Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, we hope you will enjoy the show. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, sit back and let the evening go.
So, the show starts at 8 o'clock. There are some seating still left for the performance only. The dinner's at 5. Show starts at 8 o'clock. And they will be doing the 50th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper's in its entirety that evening. So I hope that some of you can make it. I look forward to seeing you there. That's this Saturday, 8 o'clock. Any
That's
questions? Great. Updates?
No, great job, Theresa. I really think, I got to take, I had to step away, because it was it was an all-day affair. And we cut the ribbon, I believe, right at 11.
11 o'clock.
And many of us there were a really busy weekend. So we were there for a couple of hours, and I had to step away. So same thing. I came back a couple hours later, expecting to find a pseudo empty, and that, the place would have been empty by then. And there were still carloads of people getting out of their cars, arriving. And it was still jam-packed, 2, 3 o'clock. It was absolutely amazing. I think the community has really embraced this. This is going to be a lot of fun. I do want to say that in regard to the pricing of the tickets, I think it's important to remember that the first performance is a fundraiser for these school programs, and affordability of future programs is high on the list to make sure that the people of this community who own this facility are able to use it and enjoy it, and that everybody in this community will have an opportunity to go and watch one of these performances, because this belongs to you, and we did it for you. So with that, Theresa, we're very, very pleased with how it all played out. It was just absolutely perfect.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. And yep. So as you see, that's the picture of the official ribbon cutting right there. And while we do have the deputy mayor right to the left of Pete von Reichbauer, we've got the deputy to the mayor, which is my 10-year-old son Benjamin, and it was altogether fitting that he got to be right there in the middle because this is really all about the future and all about the kids in our community. So it was really fun to see Ben right up there. Okay, let's see what else. We had a lot of community events. We had the Lions Car Show this past weekend, which was absolutely fantastic. A lot of great cars. I'm always, actually that was actually, that was 8/26, not this past weekend. It was the weekend before that. A lot of great cars, a lot of great submissions, and that was a lot of fun. Then we had movie at Town Square Park. We had Pete's Dragon. You know, the Town Square Park is really just one of those things that I'm astounded every time I drive over there with how many hundreds of people are playing. The kids in the splash park or the playground. We inflated a 40-foot screen and watched this great movie, and it was free to the public, and again, it belongs to the community. Valley Communications, 40th anniversary celebration was on 8:30. Yeah, and we have the Chick-fil grand opening coming up here real soon. Tim, when is Chick-fil opening? 14th. The 14th of September. So, and what time? Morning, sir. All right. The morning. So come on out for the grand opening of Chick-fil And Mod Pizza is actually opening up very soon. We've got the 25th anniversary of the Korean Community Quarterly Meeting. That'll be on September 21st. That'll also be at the Performing Arts and Event Center. And if you were at the last meeting or have actually been coming to these council meetings, you may have heard about this elusive and long-awaited report by Senior Policy Advisor Yarden Weidenfeld about the Lake Jean situation. So I will, that report has been issued, and Yarden, you want to come on up and just kind of kind of skip across the surface on this one, and then we'll have you come to the next meeting for a much more detailed briefing on what's happening with Lake Jean. Tell us about your report.
Thank you, Mayor. As the Mayor had mentioned, I had completed the report, which I have a hard copy of right over here. It is over 80 pages long. It was emailed out to the mayor and all city council members and people in the city staff that were involved in the issue, and also to community stakeholders last Friday. And if anyone here would like a copy that has not received one, let me know, and I'll be happy to email one to you. The report does go over the lawsuit that homeowners at Lake Jean filed against the Twin Lakes Golf and Country Club, which was reported on, I reported on a couple months ago to the City Council. Also a separate litigation by resident Bob Woolley, who I believe is here, against the Department of Ecology regarding his treatment permit application. Goes through a survey informal survey I had conducted of Lake Jean residents, the role of the Twin Lake Homeowners Association, what the City Department of Public Works and the State Department of Ecology and the State Department of Health and the King County Public Health Department have done and are doing about the issues surrounding Lake Jean, and also goes through some summaries of interviews that I did with various scientific experts on the issues revolving there that are involved there. The report, like I said, is over 80 pages long. If I know it's pretty hefty, so I would recommend that if time is limited, to take a look at sections 1, overview, and section 7, entitled Options and Recommendations. As the mayor had indicated, I would be prepared to give a presentation fully on this report to the Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee, and I think I had spoken to Councilmember Kopang about doing that, and that would be next Tuesday, is that right? So next Tuesday, September 12th. And the only other guidance I would want is if Councilmember Kopang would want me to email stakeholders about that meeting next week. Sure. Okay. All right. And so that would be, I'll be prepared to do that at the meeting the committee meeting next Tuesday, a week from tonight.
Okay. And I should clarify that on Yarden's behalf, that he didn't write 80 pages of analysis. A lot of this is in regard to reports or summaries of what, it's a very complicated issue, and while it's been boiled down to just a few things, it's fairly complicated, but ultimately what it comes down to is life safety, the safety of people living on this lake, property rights, and it is somewhat complicated. So, Yarden, thank you very much for your work on this, and we'll look forward to the report at the committee level, and then maybe a more detailed report before the full council.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we've got the most important part of the meeting, which is citizen comment. First, we're going to hear from Leslie Myers and Julian Lowe with PSE, and they're going to come up and make some general comments. So welcome, Leslie and Julian.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. Julian Lowe, Local Government Affairs Manager with Puget Sound Energy. I've got one quick announcement, then I'd like to introduce Mayor, council members, and the assembled public here to Leslie Myers, who is here to talk about a door-to-door campaign that PSC has going. I think some of the comments, Mayor, you and Ray made about preparedness were spot on, and as everyone knows, safety is a huge priority for Puget Sound Energy. So I'd like to invite, again, Mayor, council members, the assembled public to join us September 16th at Walmart. PSC and the American Red Cross are joining forces to help your family be safe at home and prepared. Stop by our Safe at Home event on Saturday, September 16th from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. at the Federal Way Walmart, located at 34520 16th Avenue South in Federal Way, for a free preparedness kit with the asterisk that while supplies last. And we'll be providing some safety information and what to do in the event of an outage. Now I'd like to introduce Leslie Myers.
Hi. Thank you, Julian. I'm Leslie Myers. I have been with PSC for about 4 weeks now. I'm a customer outreach manager covering South King County, so I'm really excited to be here working with Federal Way and learning more about your community. I live in South Seattle, so Federal Way is not a stranger to me, but I'm excited to have an excuse to come down here a little bit more often. I'm here this evening to talk about a campaign that we kicked off this afternoon. It's a where are my notes? Okay, so it's a 3-week campaign. It's designed to help our residential customers conserve energy and save money on your electric bill. We're going to be going door to door and distributing 6,000 LED light bulbs to the customers, along with energy efficiency information. Our team is going to be wearing bright yellow t-shirts. They're going to be going around in the different neighborhoods for about 3 weeks. And if nobody is at home when we knock, we'll leave the light bulb and the energy efficiency information in a clearly branded PSC bag on the front porch. And if we aren't hitting your home fast enough, or if you want to make sure that you get a light bulb, we'll also be at Target this weekend, tabling.
That's great. Okay, thank you.
you.
Welcome. All right, appreciate it. Bob Woolley. Come on down. Then we've got Tashana Nash, Doug Baxter, and Jackie Muth.
I am Bob Woolley. I'm here to represent myself, and I have a few accoutrements. We're not allowed to have audio-visual, but we can have props. My first hat, I'm a Texas citizen. My hometown is Beaumont. I have family in Houston and in Beaumont. It's been mentioned earlier tonight, a special thought for those folks in Southeast Texas and Louisiana and elsewhere. They're going through horrific circumstances, and our city is preparing for such a stance, which is a very good thing. My next hat is my battle hat. Mr. Mayor, I'm retiring that battle hat.
Yeah.
My next hat is my Federal Way hat. It's one of my favorite hats. It's the reason I have been at this podium as long as I have. Federal Way is a good place. It has controversy, but it also can generate resolutions and solutions. My last hat is my nap cap. Everybody should have a nap cap because it's a thanking cap. As you are attempting to nap, you have that private ability to think over those circumstances that you ought to be pondering. City Council, you need a nap cap. to the Boy Scouts of Federal Way. Be persistent. Be flexible and always be willing to engage. If you do that, good things will happen. Yardan, you stole some of my thunder. I would just...
Stephanie, please add 2 minutes. He does speak for more than 5 people because of the litigation. So go ahead, Bob. You've got 2 more minutes.
Yardan, you stole my thunder. You did generate a report, an overdue report, but it was a task well done. It's comprehensive, it's on target, it should generate more thought and discussion, and it addresses a subject that can be a case study in how government agencies can address a significant, serious problem. When I reflect back on my 2 years, it's a near-perfect case study of what can, should, and will be done. Yardan, we've had an excursion. I want you to be my friend for the rest of my life. Thank you very much, Yardan. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Tashana Nash.
Good evening. My name is Tashana Nash, and my husband Darren and I are residents of the North Lake neighborhood, where we are raising our 3 daughters, ages 16, 13, and 10. I am serving on the board of Save Weyerhaeuser Campus, and on behalf of our organization, I would like to read the letter that was emailed to our supporters yesterday. We hope that those here and those watching at home will visit our Facebook page, click on the link to the letter, and sign your name in agreement along with the other 165 citizens who have already signed. Dear Mayor Farrell and City Council members, it's been a year since 300 people overflowed the council chambers to tell you loud and clear that they didn't want a fish processing plant and freezer warehouse on the former Weyerhaeuser campus. A lot has happened in the past year. Although the fish plant pulled out, we continue to oppose construction of warehouses on the campus. It is difficult for average citizens to interrupt their busy lives to keep showing up week after week to speak in person against the development proposals, but we are here via this letter to remind you that scores of us in the community still care as much about the campus as we did during that marathon study session a year ago. We are concerned about overwhelming traffic, especially hundreds of semi-trucks that will come to our broader community with the large warehouses being proposed. We object to plans to deforest large portions of the property in exchange for massive concrete structures. We worry about the impacts to the wetlands, the wildlife, and the North Lake watershed. We're troubled that public use of the trails we love could be halted with redevelopment, and that the Rhododendron Species Botanical Garden and the Pacific Bonsai Museum face uncertain futures. We do appreciate that our city officials are supporting the effort to purchase the 58 acres of shoreline along North Lake. Thank you for allocating $1 million toward this effort and enlisting Forterra to help work with negotiations with landowner Industrial Realty Group. Purchasing this land is the right step in protecting water and the environment, preserving public access, and creating new ways for the community to enjoy the urban forest. But there is much more work to be done. So a year later, we are asking you to direct the city staff members to do everything legally possible to prevent construction of warehouses on the campus, review development of the campus as a whole to get a true picture of the impacts to the community and the environment, preserve the landscape, which in the past year has been declared endangered by 2 heritage groups, and continue working overtime with IRG to find appropriate development that will preserve the unique character of the campus, as well as bring much-needed living wage and executive jobs to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Shoshana. Doug Baxter, and then Jackie.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Doug Baxter, and I was chair of the Violence Prevention Coalition Steering Committee. You're going to be voting on whether to adopt all 10 of our task force's recommendations tonight, along with a separate resolution to adopt a school board, city council joint committee. I first of all want to thank Councilmember Kopang and Councilmembers Moore and Asefa Dawson. They went through a deliberate process to look at all of our recommendations and created a roadmap for the city to move forward. So I want to thank them for their work. And on behalf of the entire steering committee, we want to echo something Mr. Woolley said about this city having a huge capacity to solve problems and do a lot of good. So just like we did with Lake Jean, we see the VPCSE recommendations as a way to positively, proactively move forward and prevent future violence in Federal Way. So we want to urge you to adopt all 10 of the recommendations tonight and to create that committee with the school board, and we think that'll go a long way towards making Federal Way a safe, thriving place for families to raise their kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, Jackie Muth, and then Lori Sechrist. And Lori will have 5 minutes. Jackie?
My name is Jackie Muth. I'm a property and business owner on 13th Place South, and this comment is about the Federal Way Day Center. I'm not here alone tonight. I'm representing the business owners on 13th Place South, Dr. Brothels, Paula Kloner, the comic book store, the Brobergs, the Sheer Magic, and my partner Tim Anderson with Martin Associates. And we know you have taken effort to shoo the people out over at Kids Corner, but they are going elsewhere, which is our wooded area next to us and the lot behind us. We have all experienced blatant, drug use in the area, garbage. People have slept on our roof. We have disorderly conduct. We've had children run in our building and beat on the door. There's been stealing from surrounding areas, increased litter, and we know because we pick up the garbage. We police that street every day and pick up the garbage. We have trespassing, we have graffiti, and this is, increased cost to us because we bear the cost of cleaning the building, putting a camera on our roof, instances like this. So we were told that the Federal Way Day Center would make this area a better place, but we haven't seen it. We've also provided you with emails and letters from our business owners that experiences that they've had. So, our business, our livelihood, our prosperity of our business, it's all been affected by this day center. And we, my own personal experience, we have tenants, we own the building, so we're trying to shield them from, all that's going on, and it's been difficult. So ultimately, we would like to see the day center moved. It doesn't belong in that area. It hasn't worked. We've talked to Catholic Community Services. We've talked to the organizers. It's just not working in our area. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Now, as Lori makes her way up for her 5 minutes, once we get done with all the comments, I will ask the chief to talk about what proactive steps we're going to take moving forward and then communication with the Day Center leadership. With that being said, Lori?
Thanks. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, City Council staff, friends, and neighbors. My name is Lori Sechrist. I am the proud president of the Save Warehouser Campus Organization. Tonight, I'll first also say happy anniversary to all of us. If someone would have asked me last September what would the next 12 months look like, I would have never dreamed that I would say I was part of a grassroots organization that stopped a fish processing plant from coming into its neighborhood. Nor would I have thought that I would need or want to learn about concomitant agreements, zoning laws, but the importance of the watershed and wetlands have in our urban environment, let alone meet and become part of some of the greatest organizations such as Washington Trust for Public Lands and Forterra. The neighbors that have come out of the woodwork and the people I have met have been vast, all with such diverse backgrounds, and more importantly, all now with a common sense of purpose. I would also be amiss to not mention becoming more attuned to the faults and the strengths of our own city, county, and state governments. The Save Weyerhaeuser Campus Organization is proud of its accomplishments of the past 12 months, and we will continue to be steadfast in what we defined as our mission last September, which I will remind you all again is to protect the west shoreline of North Lake, the rhododendron garden, and the bonsai collection, preserving wildlife habitat and crucial watershed land, the forest and meadows, and maintaining the character of the campus. The city also has had a few things to be proud of this year: the new town center park, the opening of the Performing Arts and Events Center, and securing DaVita's presence here in Federal Way. Congratulations to the mayor and everyone involved in these accomplishments. A contributing writer for the Tacoma News Tribune recently wrote that DaVita is a plus, but Federal Way is still not a hotbed for growth. Our population is nudging 97,000, and in some states that would qualify us as the largest city. But in Washington, it gets us only 9th place, and status is barely an afterthought. He stated that Federal Way lacks a specific identity. Seattle and Bellevue are considered corporate headquarters centers. Tacoma has the port and its industrial base, and Renton and Kent is the sector for warehouse and distribution. For years, Federal Way's largest attribute was Weyerhaeuser, its huge influence not just with the headquarters campus, but also with the intangible benefits of seeing Federal Way mentioned in every story about the company and being home to a highly visible building and its landscapes. Seattle and Bellevue will continue to attract large corporations. Tacoma can keep its industrial base. And certainly, Renton and Kent should remain known as warehouse and distribution hubs. In the August 28th Mirror article titled "Rhythm of Federal Way," the writer observed that our city's destination's identity is shifting to the Performing Arts and Events Center and all the culture it will bring with it. Well, tonight I ask you, is this good enough for a city of our size? Isn't there more that we can identify ourselves with? So to the leaders of our cities and to the staff that support it and to the citizens that live, shop, and play, it should be up to us to give our city its identity, not some writers from other cities or developers from other states. Only we can define our identity. We must build upon that tagline that our city is centered on opportunity. Federal Way can be a destination, but more destination for culture. But more importantly, it must be a city where its history is respected and conservation is more important than development. So let's fast forward to September 2018. What will both the Save Weyerhaeuser Campus Organization and the City of Federal Way have to tout as its accomplishments for the year? I hope I will be standing up here stating we secured the North Lake shoreline, the Rhodey Garden, and the Bonsai Collection's future, that we preserved the habitat, watershed, forests, and meadows, and we maintain the character of the campus. I hope I can reference articles written that the East Hylebros has become as significant as the West, and Federal Way is a city that has honored its history with its conservation and protection of its watershed and wetlands. The city's cultural district with its Performing Arts and Events Center and new hotel are thriving, and the city of Federal Way is known as the regional destination for its passive recreation. Thank you.
Deborah Hanson for 5 minutes. And then Mark Green, and then Trina Southern, and Nick Wilson.
We never get tired of talking about the Weyerhaeuser campus. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, and neighbors, my name is Deborah Hanson, and in the past 12 months, I've become an activist for making Federal Way a better place to live, work, and play by protecting, preserving, and maintaining the unique character of the former Weyerhaeuser campus. What a difference 12 months makes. 12 months ago, I had not attended a city council meeting, nor would I have imagined making citizen comments. Now I can count on one hand the number of council meetings I've missed in the last 12 months. 12 months ago, we were looking at a fish plant being placed adjacent to a Federal Way residential community, a church, and school. Now we're not. 12 months ago, we did not have an organized group of Federal Way and surrounding community citizens with a variety of professional skills working together to protect, preserve, and maintain the former Weyerhaeuser campus. We did not have knowledge of George Weyerhaeuser's long-term vision for the Weyerhaeuser campus. We did not understand former CEO Jack Creighton's intent when he signed the concomitant agreement. We did not have $1 million of Federal Way surface water management funds assigned to purchase land along the west shore of North Lake, or $1 million of matching funds from King County in the works, or a placeholder of $250,000 in the state capital budget. We did not have Yarden Weidenfeld or Forterra to help move us forward. We did not have DeVita bringing 500 employees to Federal Way and building an office building that enhanced the property and our city, and now we do. 12 months ago, the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation had not named the former Weyerhaeuser campus the most endangered landscape in the state of Washington. Now they have. And the former Weyerhaeuser campus did not have national attention by being listed as an at-risk landscape by the Cultural Landscape Foundation. Now it is. I don't think that 12 months ago many of the council had walked or appreciated the longest undeveloped lake shoreline in our city along North Lake, or that knew that right here in our city, the Rhododendron Species Botanical Garden's importance internationally, and the Pacific Bonsai Museum is the best in the U.S. Now you do. And 12 months ago, Federal Way had not had a record rainfall of 45.9 inches between October 2016 and May 2017, making it the second year in a row of record rainfall since 1895. Now we have. 12 months ago, Houston had not suffered the effects of Hurricane Harvey and learned that there is a complex interplay between nature and the world we create. Officials paid little attention to the consequences of urban growth in wetland environments, and they learned that one-night stand developers did not enhance their environment by paving wetlands nor make it resilient. Resilient cities around the world are creating more green spaces and restoring wetlands and reforestation to bolster capacity for rain to be absorbed, much like the city is currently doing with the William J. Mears homestead on the West Hylobos, and that we can also do on the East Hylobos on the former Weyerhaeuser property. I want to thank each of you for the time and the progress we've made in the last 12 months. And I appreciate that through this process, I've come to know you and become a much more informed voter. The IRG property contains the headwaters of the East Hylobos. I ask that you pay as much attention to the importance of that water source as you are to the West Hylobos in the next 12 months and beyond, and not have to look back as Houston is on their mistakes. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to what we can do in the next 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Mark Green, then Trina Southern.
Milwaukee is a long ways from Federal Way, but I want to thank Sheriff David Clark for his great service to the nation, not just the Milwaukee region. He resigned recently. My political fortunes haven't risen from candidate to office holder since that first Michigan representative test in Detroit in 1976. But the great state of Alaska tried to get me in. The great city of Federal Way is following in Alaska's steps. All I've got to say is that a certain tin-horn dictator should thank his lucky stars that I'm a late bloomer, because President Trump is a lot more patient than me. Even at this late age, my mother's 1964 prediction, when I was just the age of 10, may yet come to light, and I'll be in the arena trying to prove her right. The Sewant Moon Oliver J. Appel radical left globalist train has left the Vladimir Lenin Fidel Castro train station in Seattle and is roaring down the tracks towards our fair city of Federal Way. The train must be boarded. The philosophies, doctrines, the train must be boarded. The philosophies, doctrines, and ideals within must be frisked, and the malcontents who run contrary to Federal Way values and laws must be read the Riot Act. By the way, the nation is trying to instill a few real patriotic values in the last half a year, a nation gone awry with globalist fever. Earlier this year, believe it or not, somebody actually asked me what country I'm from. You know, I told them I'm from the country of Michigan. I smirked when I said that. For newcomers that may not know that, that's America. When you come here from other nations, you cast your lot with America, not with the world. You cast your lot with Michigan, with Wisconsin, with Alaska, and the great state of Washington, among others. We are not the world, we're just part of the world, albeit the greatest part. Thank you.
Trina Southern, then Nick Wilson, and then Terry Turner.
Hello, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. Nice to see you. I'm here to add I'm Trina Southern. I'm here to add my comments to the Weyerhaeuser campus conversation. And I can't read my writing very well, I'll try. Okay, so the Weyerhaeuser campus is an irreplaceable area, and damage to the watershed would be permanent if it's not carefully planned. It's significant to the history of the state of Washington having the history that it does. The impact, if not planned well, would overwhelm local infrastructure, which is important to our residents. And we can't endure irresponsible use for this unique and valued gem with no care taken to preserve the special character and benefit that cannot ever be replaced should it disappear. The desires of the incumbent residents should greatly matter, and the city government is entrusted to protect our standard of living. So one last comment. You may or may not have heard of a wonderful and transformative book called Cradle to Cradle. It will change your ideas around sustainable development, recycling, and even just your own personal way of life for good. Thank you for hearing me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick Wilson, then Terry Turner.
Hi, I just I'm up here to thank you guys, especially Farrell, Mark for showing up for the Friendship Day, because I know you guys were probably all busy, and Susan. I just want to say thanks for what you did on the Friendship Day. There was a lot more people than there were last year, actually. Thanks for the radio station. We had more events for the kids. Everybody had a blast. Yeah, and I finally got a chance to actually call my friends actually this month because I've been working 50 hours and trying to make time for that. So like it's pretty tiring. And it's really awesome to have a great feeling when one of your buddies appreciates you, just making that time one of the year, just say, hey, you want to hang out sometime, you know, because usually it's the other way around for me. So I just want to say thank you for what you guys have done for the city, and, you know, thanks for the event. And, you know, I'm very blessed and hope next year will be bigger. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick, and thank you very much for your great idea to make this a reality.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay. Terry Turner.
I'm Terry Turner, mayor, deputy mayor, council members, and neighbors. I just wanted to add my 2 cents to the Kids Corner Day Center thing. So I'm not a business owner. I'm just a straight up bleeding heart liberal. And and with that said, I've been at the multi-service center running the food bank. Well, I've been there 9 years, probably running the food bank for 6 of those. It's really, this whole thing has just changed my life. I was really open to how this might work, because absolutely, where are people supposed to go do these things? Where do they wash their laundry, take a shower, find a computer to use? I think there's a lot of positive things. But with the number of people there are, and somebody did say, when they're moving them out of the woods, so now they're sleeping on our property. They're defecating on our property. We used to have a porta potty that I put in probably 7 years ago. In that 7 years, I had 2 problems. And the first one was they knocked it over, because we used to just keep it open when the food bank was open. Well, they knocked it over. So I said, so let's stop locking it. That was the end of it. We had one problem where somebody had some sort of accident they couldn't take care of, and they came and apologized and told me they tried, they just didn't have anything to clean it up with. And that's been the end until probably a month into it. I had to get rid of it. A month into the day center, they filled the tank up with clothes. They lived in there. They started fires in there. They had sex in there. They did drugs in there. When we moved it out, there were probably 100 needles underneath. And I wish I could say, if you'd only something or other, it would work. I don't know what the solution is, because I do think they deserve to have some respect and have a decent life, but that's not what's happening right here, right now. And I can't, it feels like a lot of the neighbors are kind of fencing all their property in. And we're certainly talking about it, because I can't send anybody out to pick up garbage between the buildings, because that's not a safe thing to do. Okay, thank you.
All right. Keegan Negron. And then Carissa Eggleston. And then Debbie Peterson.
I am a representative for Federal Public Academy for the program Advancing Leadership Youth. And I personally invite you, Mayor, and all the other city council members to visit my school, and here's what I have to say about that. I think that you and possibly others would benefit from visiting our school. Federal Public Academy is an academically driven public school that gives its students an excellent and well-balanced curriculum. And I feel that many students that are not able to attend our school due to its small size would greatly benefit from this curriculum. Not only does our school emphasize on academics, we also encourage and are required to do community service to make our city a better place. And as I have said before, our school is rather limited in its size, and at least half the students that apply unfortunately can't get in due to the small size. But I think what FRAPA represents should be expanded upon either through the development of new schools like it or the introduction of a curriculum to other schools. In other words, students should be able to have access to a private school level curriculum without having to pay extra for it. Our school is a shining example that a curriculum can be made public with no extra cost. I personally invite you to visit our school and see what it has to offer. Please email me if you want to know more and when you'll be able to visit FWAPA. Are there any questions you have?
We'll see you there soon. Thank you, Keegan.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Carissa Eagleston and then Debbie Peterson.
Good evening. My name is Theresa Eggleston, and I'm here to talk about the recommendations from the Violence Prevention Committee, and I brought a young future leader up here to stand by me because I get nervous when I do this. This is not my natural thing. So thank you, Isaiah, for helping me out. There's three specifically that I wanted to talk about. One of them was about after-school programs. I know I work for the school district. I'm part of the Federal Way Youth Action Team, and I'm co-director of the HYPE program. So I'm involved in the community and the schools. Some of the schools have after-school programs, but there's a need to have after-school programs at every single school. There's transportation issues. We hold HYPE on the weekends at the Boys and Girls Club. The place is completely empty. So there's a need for young people to go to. I'm always at the EX3, and there's kids there, and there's certain schools that get transportation to them, but not all of them. If we really want to make an impact, we need to be providing services at all the schools to all of the young people. The other one I wanted to talk on is the importance of having somebody on your staff that's specifically working on these issues or working with the community. Yarden has been amazing and come to several events. We've had meetings with folks on the city council, but because you're so short-staffed, it kind of takes a while to get to the next meeting to get progress going. And I think that the issues are urgent and we need to address them. Am I doing okay? Okay. And my final one that I'm very passionate about, I'm the worksite learning coordinator for the school district, and youth employment, and we've been doing some work with that, is so important to the schools, to the kids, and to the community, but specifically when it comes to youth violence. In other communities where they have summer youth employment programs or even 16-month youth employment programs, they've shown a 43% decrease in juvenile crime. And juvenile crime, I'm sure that the chief can tell you, is on the rise here. I work with these kids. I know of things that just happened within the week. And I know of some kids personally that are now engaged in doing positive things rather than the criminal things. But our HYPE program has 10 kids every other weekend. So there's a need for other employment. Kids who are involved in youth employment also have an increased interest in attending college. And they're also more likely to engage and have a positive view of their community. So do you want to add anything? We have like 2 minutes, 1 minute. Okay, thank you for your support, and thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Debbie Peterson, and then Betty Taylor.
I kind of wish I'd brought somebody to stand up here with me tonight too, but it's just me, and I'm going to be brave. My name is Debbie Peterson, and this is my second time here with you tonight. I was here last in April, and I'm here for the same purpose as I was last time. The Violence Prevention Steering Committee has worked really hard to come up with recommendations that are going to allow and support this city to partner together with a lot of other community members, many of whom I'm assuming are here tonight, who are working really hard to support our children and families and to prevent the violence that has pervaded our community over the last year. I really hope that you are able to make space within the city's plan to heed all 10 recommendations. I think and I believe that they are all things that could help to build up our ability to support our youth and to prevent violence and to keep our city safe and whole and together. I remember when I was here, I felt so strongly back in April based on some of the comments that were made by other people, and there was nobody here to fire me up tonight. But I'm going to touch back on one of the things that I remember coming out from that evening, and that was the idea that we have a tremendous amount of youth out here in our community that we have failed over time. We've missed the mark. We haven't given them the support that they need, whether it be in their early childhood or in their academic setting or within their families and their neighborhoods and their communities. But we have many youth out here in our world who don't know what they're doing. And we've seen what's happening when they don't have the guidance and the support and the services and the access that they need. We've failed our children. But we can pick up and work together, especially if we are heeding these 10 recommendations together, towards creating an environment where our children are seen, where their voices are heard, where they are respected, and they are giving respect as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty Taylor.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, members of the audience, and those that are watching by TV. I have two things to say. First of all, I remember National Night Out was August, first Tuesday in August. And at that time, a lot of people came out. We had a lot of entertainment and stuff. A lot of pictures were taken. From those pictures, Bruce Honda made a big blotter, and I have bought the blotter. I bought the big picture here tonight, sitting on the back table. We would like for the community to sign the blotter, to sign the picture, which is on the back table. The picture will be, we're going to give the picture to, should I say it?
Yep.
Okay. We're going to give the picture to Target. We plan on doing that because basically Target was a great sponsor and night out. We appreciate Target. We appreciate them for opening up their heart, opening up their store. I mean, really, within a 2-day period, I mean, Target was on top. And this is our appreciation to Target. We plan on doing this at the next city council meeting. The blotter, the poster will be laminated, and it will be presented to Target. But we would love for everyone to please sign it before you leave here. Do not forget to go to the back table and sign it. Okay, on another note, I'll be real quick. When we're talking about the 336th and 13th, and we're talking about the fires, you know, there have been 2 so far. I believe that place needs to be really cleaned up. I had in my neighborhood, we had a homeless camp. It was really bad. And so just recently, the homeless camp has been cleaned up. I mean, trees have been taken out of the roots. I mean, basically, when you walk through the area, you do not see trees. You see land. You see dirt. I've never seen dirt. I've always seen grass and trees. Now I see dirt, and I feel safe. At the end of the cleanup, the debris that was left was horrific. It was awful. I mean, mountains and mountains and mountains. But it's gone. Now, we as neighbors in my neighborhood, we feel safe walking in the neighborhood because the homeless camp has been cleaned. I think the same thing should be done on 336. The trees need to be removed. The land needs to be cleaned, gutted out, because it's important for our city, it's important for our community. And it's a safety, it's safety right now. We're all concerned about safety. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Betty. We agree. Thank you. Cynthia Ricks, Mecatan.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, the rest of the council, and citizens, my fellow neighbors. This is my proud son, Isaiah, and we're here to speak about the Violence Prevention Coalition Steering Committee recommendations. First of all, I want to commend you on taking a bold step to address the violence that happened last year. I've lived in the city very, very, very long time. I don't want to date myself. I know I look youthful. But it was pretty scary, especially when my 9-year-old knew some of the victims, my niece who goes to Decatur knew some of the victims, and I had worked with some of those youth. It hurt us dearly. So I'm here tonight on behalf of the Federal Way Youth Action Team, which some of my colleagues have already spoken about. I'm here as a parent, a concerned resident that lives on 11th Place Southwest, not too far from Lakota. My son has played football here, played basketball. He's a member of the Boys and Girls Club. He broke his ankle playing dodgeball here. We are vested in the community. We also, by the way, saw Chitty Chitty Bang Bang at the Performing Arts Center. If you haven't been, you should go. Isaiah, step out for me. He's also my prop. He's also my prop. Turn around, please. On the back of his shirt, it says, "The answer is in the community." What is it? The answer? Say it, son. The answer is in. Very good. Come on back, son. You are not alone. When it comes to these recommendations, I want you to know the answer is in the community. And just like the Federal Way Youth Action Team developed a year ago in June, and we now have funding, we have 3 programs, we're starting to see a reduction in the youth referrals to the juvenile justice system. We have a partnership with the school district. We work with the SROs, the school resource officers. We are active in the community. We are a part of the community. You are not alone. When you pass all 10 of those recommendations in just a few moments, you are not alone. The answer is in the community. You will have youth from the ages of very small all the way up to, what do we consider youth now, about 21, 24, working with you. You will have the Federal Way Youth Action Team. You will have tons of other partners out there to help you implement. You are not alone. Thank you.
Excuse me. I'm sure we're going to adopt all the recommendations of the committee, but I have a question, and I've raised this before too. A lot of what goes on happens in the home. And are there any plans or any groups that are going to try to work with some of these parents to help them better guide their children?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Debbie, come on up here. So I'm going to speak just briefly to answer your question. Thank you so much. And then Debbie is going to take over. So the Federal Way Youth Action Team just doesn't provide services for our youth, our at-risk youth, and those that are already involved in the juvenile justice system. We also do parenting engagement. And we have a program coming up in October where we're hopefully going to have it at Uptown Square, but we work with the parents. So it's a holistic approach. It's about job readiness. It's about community service, right? We've been working with one of our with Jesse, who's running for city council as well,
Okay.
to do a voter registration.
I'm glad to hear that, but I would really like to see it a part of.
But it is a part of.
I'd like to see it, though, in writing in the violence prevention report.
I understand.
So that we're saying.
11th recommendation.
11th recommendation.
I have an 11th recommendation.
Debbie, come on and tell them what that recommendation
My name is Debbie Peterson again, and through my organization, because it takes a village, Child Learning Collaborative, based here in Federal Way, I do work across Washington State to support children, youth, families, as well as the organizations and systems that serve them. One of the roles that I play is as Washington State lead to the Center for Study of Social Policy, which promotes a framework called Strengthening Families, Protective Factor Framework and Approach. And that's your 11th plan. And I would be more than happy to, or 11th recommendation, excuse me. I would be more than happy to put that into writing for you and show the city a path where they can partner with community members, families, children, our schools, because it takes a village, to support our children and youth through a Strengthening Families Protective Factor Framework approach.
Thank you. I really would appreciate it because it does it starts in the home. And if we have young people that become parents and they don't know anything about parenting or have any support, they can't really support the children too well. And you know, we're all about the children here, but we also have to give the parents some help. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, the last pink sheet I have is Suzanne Vargo. Ms. Vargo?
Hi, Mayor, Council, audience. Got a couple things. First, Betty, great idea, but can we just trim those branches off the trees? Let's not remove them. Not a good thing. About the maintenance facility that is wanting to be built at site number 1 across from Costco, I would just like to say that the people that live in this area, these homes, they were never told that their houses were built on a landfill. I found out that our SACO, I'd never say it right, also dumped their debris into this landfill. The petroleum pipeline also runs through this landfill. And I'd really like to say, you know, how much more can this little community take? I think they have enough abuse, they have enough toxicity, and they really don't need to be uprooted and or live next to a large, heavy industrial maintenance facility. So, could we please just put that MF, maintenance facility, down in Fife where it belongs? And this would really prove to us that Sound Transit is listening to us and really does want the best for all of us. My second one is called Knock It Off. Rare and unique, says the concomitant agreement. I'm still struggling to understand the industrial mentality of IRG. It is interesting that nearly every aspect of the zoning is being challenged. What gave IRG the inclination that this property was to be dismantled? Where did they get this idea from? The concomitant clearly states the limitations of this land, and we were told that we, the city, was going to uphold the concomitant to the very letter of the law. The concomitant clearly states all the land intentions. We've got George Weyerhaeuser's inputs in his own words. We have Jack Creighton, who created the concomitant. No one and nothing says warehouses of exorbitant size and toxic chemicals are allowed. Period. Do you think the creation of this beautiful campus was to be invaded by semi-trucks, nightlight pollution, destruction of an ecosystem, and an aquifer? No. The campus was created to set the new standards for development. Example, West Campus. I'm hoping that the council can see its role in protecting this campus. The Weyerhaeuser Company is a significant part of the Federal Way and our state history. To strip away all aspects of Weyerhaeuser mentality, the pride that came with the name, the way they treated their employees and neighbors, is to saying that Federal Way itself is not important. We're not worth saving. So I'd like to see each and every one of you on the council to step up, start taking serious actions, because I don't know of any that have come to fruition, and stop all of this creative zoning. And that'll work for me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, that's the last pink sheet I have. Is there anybody else who'd like to come before the council and speak? All right, thank you very much. It was great to hear from everybody. All right, now we're moving on to item 5. This is the consent agenda. These items have gone through committee. A committee of council members of 3 members. They can be passed all at once, or prior to a motion, I will ask whether a council member would wish to have an item pulled for separate consideration. I'll go ahead and read the items and then seek a motion. Item A are the minutes for the August 8th, 2017 special and regular meetings. Item B, demolition of structures at 38818 8th Avenue South, bid award. Item C, authorization to apply for Department of Ecology water quality capacity. Item D, 2018 asphalt overlay program, preliminary project list and authorization to bid. Council, are there any items that you would wish for separate consideration? Councilmember Honda.
Item B.
Item B
Thank you.
is pulled. All right, Council, any other items? All right, Deputy Mayor Burbidge, you have a motion.
I do. I move approval of, you said item B?
Yeah.
B, okay, thank you. I move approval of items A, C, and D on the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passes unanimously. Item B, Councilmember Honda.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. I remember walking through this old house last year with Marwan and Councilmember Maloney and hoping that it could be saved, and obviously we've decided that that's not going to happen. However, I'm wondering in this bid if it's possible that we can perhaps reuse some of the components of the house, such as the windows, perhaps some of the wood that we could possibly sell to someone who'd be interested in having something of that value.
Marwan, is that feasible?
Councilmember Honda, the challenge we have at the present time, the way we prepare the bid is for the demolition of the house and all of the content to be removed off-site. Now, if the council desire to keep any part of the house, we could definitely negotiate with the contractor and see if we could keep some of that material.
I, too, also took a tour of that house, and I recall that the mantle and certain key things had been pulled out of the house, and that the problem with that, with the home now, is that because the weather has gotten in, that there's a severe mold issue inside the house. Is that correct, Marwan?
That is correct. And my understanding from Councilmember Honda that she would like to save some of the wood. The challenge, as I said, we could have structured the specification to specify which item that the contractor would be saving for the city and where to deliver them to. That's not the way we structure the contract. The way we structure the contract at the present time is for the building to be demolished and all of the material to be hauled away, and it is the contractor responsibility to haul it away. And if the committee, I believe, they have seen the range of the different bidders, and the contractor who become the low bidder appear to have structured his bid to utilize some of the material because his bid is somewhat lower than the second and the third bidder.
All right. Council, anything else on that item? Councilmember Honda, did you have anything else on that? All right. Council, anything else on that? All right. So is there a motion for item with respect to item B?
Okay. I move approval of item B on the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Matter passes unanimously. Item 6, council business. Item A, audiovisual communications contract amendment for Performing Arts and Event Center. We've got Theresa Yvonne here to give a staff report, our PAC director, and then we'll move forward. Theresa?
Good evening. There we go. So what I have before you, this has been before you previously. Morgan Sound Incorporated was agreement for the audio-visual equipments for inside the Performing Arts and Events Center. To give a background, on June 6th, the council approved that agreement for $115,506.47. What I'm in front of you now for is an additional $5,049.01, which is a 4% increase to ensure the projectors arrived in time. There was a shipping expedition so that the Garco could install them and that we would not incur additional labor costs on that, and then additional labor for installation of the equipment from Morgan Sound. It's a 4% increase with Morgan Sound. They were still the lowest responsive bidder, even at the total amount of $120,000. And but the mayor's recommendation is to ratify the additional $5,049.01 to Morgan Sound, for a total of $120,565.48.
All right. And how does this work with our overall budget?
We're fine. It's within the FF&E, and we knew about this when we had to ratify this agreement. I did bring the curtain agreement back to you. That was a change of, I think, if I'm going off the top of my head, closer to 18%. This was a 4% differential with a little bit of confusion on who was installing the projectors, and we would have incurred additional costs if Garco had not installed them. So we moved forward with that.
Okay. Council, any questions on that? Councilmember Honda?
So we're, excuse me, we're still within our budget then?
We are still within our budget, and it's just for the additional $5,049, and we have about $17,000 left in our FF&E. There's still some more equipment that we'll need to purchase.
Thank you.
All right. Council, any other questions? All right. Councilmember Duclos, do you have a motion?
Yes, I move to ratify the agreement with Morgan Sound Incorporated to authorize the use of additional funds as presented tonight for the Performing Arts and Event Center audio and video equipment.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passes unanimously. Thank you, Theresa, and good work. Item B, adoption of Violence Prevention Coalition Steering Committee recommendations. But first, we'll have a presentation by Councilmember Kope. Councilmember Kope?
Thank you, Mayor. While the presentation is being queued up, I wanted to thank my council committee partners, Councilmember Moore and Councilmember Lydia Sept for their partnership and collaboration, as well as Deputy Mayor Burbidge, who attended all of our meetings as well and was who offered valuable insights. The policy question tonight is, should the City Council approve the adoption of all or a portion of the 10 Violence Prevention Coalition Steering Committee recommendations? By talk about catalysts for action. In May of 2016, Federal Way was rocked by 3 murders that occurred within 48 hours. With the understandable fear and outrage that was felt by the community, the need to do something to address the violence in Federal Way became a high priority. Rather than being reactionary in their response and just doing something, the City Council and Mayor saw wisdom in utilizing the expertise that exists within the community to gain understanding of the underlying issues that led to the violence we experienced. With the aim of identifying sustainable, long-term solutions, it was from this beginning that the Violence Prevention Coalition Steering Committee was formed. The formation of the Violence Prevention Coalition Steering Committee was unanimously approved by the Federal Way City Council. Based on council approval, a call for volunteers to serve on the newly approved BPSC was made by the mayor, Jim Farrell. Applications were accepted by the city and reviewed by the staff and mayor, and appointments were made. And here's a picture of the group, a group that really represents a broad cross-section of our community. Education, law enforcement, community partners, school district, again, many people from various backgrounds weighed in. So it's a very collaborative representation of our community. We've got the names here. Doug Baxter chaired this. Lawrence Garrett was the vice chair. We have Alonzo Aguilar, Dr. Cammie Campbell from the superintendent of the school district, Zenaida Cruz, Mark Hendricks from the Boys and Girls Club, Aaron Heronshaw, Andy Hwang, the chief of police here at Federal Way, Kira Kuchins, Kelly Lauritsen, Dr. Daniel Pfeiffer, Dion Schell, Dr. Andre Sims, and Diane Zorro. All engaged in the community, all with substantive participation in creating solutions. After extensive research, the VPC Steering Committee reached the conclusion that the majority of the violence in our community occurred in the youth and young adult communities. Based on this, the VPC made the following recommendations to reduce violence. Bystander awareness training. Number 2 is expansion of restorative justice practices. Number 3, promotion of safe gun storage practices. Number 4 is expansion of the youth mentorship programs. Number 5 is the establishment of a one-stop resource center for at-risk youth and young adults. Number 6, the establishment of after-school programs. Number 7, expanded social and emotional training for youth, young adults, and families. Number 8, establishment of a youth program in the Federal Way to address youth and young adult substance abuse. Number 9, establishment of a youth employment program. And 10, a Federal Way staff position to facilitate implementation of these recommendations. These recommendations were broadly written to incorporate a multitude of different solutions. So they're not prescribing specific actions, but again, making recommendations on areas of focus for the City Council to support and establish programs around. The Parks and Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee looked at each one of these And we're able to, in reviewing that, make some evaluations. This evaluation also took into account the staff feedback, and I think in most cases we saw very good potential for implementation, both on our own or in partnership. Based on the staff feedback and the committee review, the PRHSPS committee concluded that the following recommendations could be or are already being implemented without significant additional city resources being required. And number one was the bystander awareness program. One of the recommendations that was made was the Green Dot bystander awareness program. The training is being provided by Dawn and would serve the city well, require minimal time and effort and resources for the city to implement. Training could occur within the city council chambers or in one of the other rooms here on city staff on property. So there are opportunities there for us to adopt that fairly easily. Expansion of the restorative justice practices was the second recommendation that the committee saw as being a good step forward. And the good news is that the city municipal court has already taken great steps in implementation of restorative justice practices in their sentencing. So again, focusing on creating solutions for those that break the law rather than just focusing on punishment. And again, I think that there's that whole process is being implemented by the school district as well. So I think the coordinated effort of the school district and the city together is a great example of how we can build a cohesive and collaborative solution. Number three was promotion of a safe gun storage and practices. And in talking to the chief of police, Andy Hwang, the police department has already secured retail partners in the city willing to offer gun safes at discounted rates. So there's the potential for us to move forward with this program and then promote it as well. Number four is the expansion of the youth mentorship programs. And again, we've got a great core group of volunteers within city council or city staff that are already mentoring on a volunteer basis. And we certainly want to continue to recommend or to encourage the staff members to continue those voluntary efforts. But in addition to that, whatever way we can, I think that we can create an environment where mentorship continues to grow and be fostered is certainly a good next step for us as well. Recommendation number 6 was the establishment of an after-school program. And I skipped number 5 because that's in another group. But the establishment of the after-school program, in collaboration with the Federal Way Public School District, the community, John Hutton and the community center staff have already created an after-school program at the community center for the Federal Way Public School students. And this program is scheduled to begin this month. So that's one step forward on the part of the city. But there are other programs, there's other ways for us to, I think, to look at supporting after-school programs. And I think that as a member of the council or the committee, we certainly were encouraging that kind of thought. There are some recommendations that we believed required additional resources, and I want to go through this very quickly. Recommendation number 5 was the establishment of a one-stop resource center. Recommendation 7 was the expanded social and emotional training. Recommendation 8 is the establishment of a program to address youth and young adult substance abuse. Recommendation 9 is the establishment of a youth employment program, and recommendation number 10 was the additional staff to support implementation of the BPCSC recommendations. With the completion of the BPC Steering Committee report, the question really has been what's next. And we've gone through the process now of going through a committee. Now it's before the council. But again, if we vote to move forward on all our portion of the 10 recommendations, the full council for further discussion is going to be necessary on implementation. And again, this is something that is going to be done in partnership with the mayor and the staff. But I think the recommendation of the VPC, or the remainder of the VPC recommendations are going to require more staff time and effort. And again, very important for us to understand that. But we really do, I think, owe a huge debt of gratitude to the BPCSC committee or steering committee for their efforts. It took 7 months of long, hard work, a lot of thought and effort, and the Federal Way City Council and Mayor, along with the citizens of Federal Way, are indebted to the VPCSC Steering Committee volunteers for their committed and thoughtful service to our city and the surrounding community. So with that, the options for consideration are to approve the draft document as written, recommending approval of all or a portion of the BPCSC recommendations. Number two would be to approve a modified draft document recommending approval of all or a portion of the BPCSC recommendations or take no action. Any questions?
Council, any questions? Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much. John, this is a question for you, just a clarification. I like to be observant and just want to bring some clarity to this. There was discussion of after-school programs starting in September. Where are we at with that?
That is correct. That starts next week after a closure at the community center, and we have kids registered right now, and we'll be expecting a big boom as parents realize their kids are back in school now. So that usually happens right before school starts and right before school ends.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may continue.
Please.
Thank you. How many students have signed up?
I haven't checked, and I was out of town at the emergency management training last week, but we were in the 10 to 15 area before I left, and that's kind of the time when those registrations start piling up. I would imagine we'll be serving, this is a guess at this point, but probably 30 to 60 kids within the first month.
Okay.
Each day.
And I assume it's going to be a recruitment process, going out and talking to people to recruit students.
We've advertised heavily on Peach Jar, Facebook, throughout the different various methods we have to get to all the parents' inboxes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, is there a motion? Actually, Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. John, are these classes free? Or
No,
are
they're-
these activities?
No, they're not free, but they are extremely reduced price. In fact, we've had a couple parents call us and say, is this the weekly price or the monthly price? And it's the monthly price, so we've kept it very, very affordable.
And it's for ages, what ages?
Elementary school.
So is it daycare?
No, it's an after-school program where we help the kids. We provide a snack. We also provide recreation opportunities, and we help them with their homework. So, and one day a week they get to go swimming while they're for part of their recreation time during the time. But one of the main focuses is to be providing strong mentorship and help with their homework to help these kids be successful in the classroom.
Is transportation provided?
Transportation is provided by the school district from the school to the community center. Parents then pick up the children at around 6 o'clock that evening.
This is over a year in planning and preparation.
So from every school in the district, transportation is provided?
No, from 4 select schools that the school district chose.
I have some other questions unless you want to talk about.
Go ahead, finish.
I have a question on recommendation number 3, promotion of safe gun storage and practices. Is there an age limit for a purchase of a gun? I mean, these are recommendations for youth, and so I'm curious as to how old one could be before they could purchase a gun and get the license that in the state of Washington.
Chief?
I think I'm best to answer that question. You have to be 18 years old or older to purchase a rifle, and 21 years or older to purchase a pistol. In regards to the locking device, I know we're talking about violence, but quite often it's not in the news, but there are teenagers and adults who commit suicide as well, so it's not always a crime. So we're certainly encouraging our residents to, if you have a firearm, buy a lock or a safe for safe storage.
Is it possible or even allowed to require a gun safe if you purchase a weapon?
There are currently no laws that require a safe or a locking device, locking up the weapon if you have one.
I've talked to many owners who who have guns and weapons, and one of the first things they say is that that's the most responsible thing to do, and they would encourage everyone who purchases a gun to purchase a safe to lock their gun away. Go ahead. I have other questions, but I'll.
Councilmember Sept Dawson?
Thank you, Mayor. So my question is to Mr. Hutton about fees for the after-school program. Do we offer scholarship maybe on a sliding scale fee?
I do believe we offer scholarship for children who are on the free and reduced lunch program.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember, any other, Councilmember Moore?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. John, I think we're all focused on youth, obviously, for this segment. You and I had long conversations about the late night sessions. Is that still going to operate in the future? Is there plans to still do that?
Yes, we had good success with those. They're very taxing on staff.
I know.
Who've already worked 40 or 50 hours by the time it rolls around on that Friday night. But we do plan to continue those. They've been very successful.
And the first time, if I'm not mistaken, 70 kids showed up, and then the second time that you had that event, it was about 120. Is that right?
Those numbers sound familiar. I don't have those off the top of my head, but I believe that's pretty accurate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Councilmember Selsky?
Thanks, Mayor Farrell. And to Director Hutton, John, question a little bit more about the program specifics. You talked about homework advice or homework preparation. Can you talk a little bit more about that, expand on that? Do we have staff that's actually qualified to do that, or is that school district staff, or how does that work?
Parks and Recreation staff are basically brilliant across the board, so we're very fortunate to have that. No, actually, we've hired a lot of youth from the gifted programs throughout the Federal Way School District, a lot of high-performing, our day camp staff. We were fortunate to hire a younger day camp staff this year, so we didn't lose as many to college this year. So we were fortunate to have those kids still around, those young people still around, 16, 17-year-old scholars that will be doing a great job with these kids, in addition to staff, and we'll allow volunteers to come in after they've been background checked. So if there are particularly gifted people or people with just a good heart that want to help these kids be successful, we'll certainly have those people come in and be available. But we have some really good staff that are really good students across the board. Some are extremely gifted in math, some in the language arts, and other areas of expertise where they can really help these kids be successful.
Okay, thank you. That alone should encourage a lot of parents to get their kids involved, not only for that, but for the other parts of this program. I'm really excited about this part of it. Then a question for Chief Hwang is, do we know, or is there any statistics on theft of weapons out of homes and what size of a problem that is? Is there any data at all on that?
I don't have hard numbers for you, but what I can tell you is that the guns that are on the street that are in possession of the criminals are, in most instances, are also stolen weapons. And they do quite often come from residential burglaries, and also guns that are left unsecured in vehicles. Quite often we have those type of theft as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Let me interrupt the discussion just for a moment and take something a little bit out of context. The folks that have businesses on 13th Place are still here, and I promised at the conclusion of, it dawned on me a little while ago, this conversation is going. Chief, are we going to make efforts to reach out to, just to change topics for a moment, are we going to make efforts to reach out to the day center leadership and talk about expectations? I know those conversations and interactions are ongoing. I actually asked our human services folks to go over there and to brief their folks about making sure that we're doing those referrals. But what kinds of communications and updates can we get, or can we give to the day center folks and get some expectations outlined about what these business owners are experiencing and what we're going to tolerate and not tolerate?
I would tell you that they're certainly one of the stakeholders that's going to help us mitigate the issues there. And I know Human Services Department, Mr. Jeff Watson, is going to make contact with them. We've certainly have contact with them in the past. I think one of the things here that we've also been in contact with each of the business owners at the retail center and that surrounding area. And I would say we have a good partnership. I think we're all working together to get to a solution, but and that's where we're at. We're going to be meeting with business owners or property owners on south of 336 as well in the upcoming week.
I do want to let everybody know, we had a conversation about the FEMA training and the fact that we were back there. While we were back there, I had a conversation with our community development director, our chief of police, our human services manager, Jeff Watson, and fire department, our fire marshal was there as well, talking about that. I think Betty Taylor had mentioned that there had been several fires last week at that location after the cleanup had been commenced. We're investigating, the fire department is investigating whether those fires were intentionally set, and that investigation is ongoing. But we certainly have a lot of concerns, and so our concern was making sure that that area is cleaned and that area is taken care of, and we're not just moving this issue around or pushing the issue around. We're committed to making sure that that area of town is orderly and that we don't have this lawlessness in the camps out there. So that I want to let you folks know that even while we're back there, we were talking about that issue, and it's front and center in our attention. So we will reach out to the day center folks and set forth some very clear expectations about what we want and what we're not going to tolerate. So, okay, that being said, let's get back. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for waiting as long as you did. You folks have businesses to run, so I wanted to make sure you get moving. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's go back. Councilmember Honda.
Thank you. Recommendation number 8 is establishment of a program to address youth and young adult substance abuse. When the Violence Committee put this together, what were the thoughts of how this was going to be done? Who would they be helping, and any other thoughts? Do you know?
They could certainly speak for themselves.
Okay.
I'll attempt to make a.
Well, Doug's here. Maybe
Doug,
he
you're
could-
here. Well, actually, Doug, why don't you go ahead and take this? That's fine.
So, Councilmember Honda, when we were researching this issue, we found that there is basically no way to get substance use treatment in the city of Federal Way if you are a youth. Valley Cities doesn't provide that anymore as of about 3 years ago. So say you're like a student at Decatur who needed treatment, you would have to go to Nexus in Auburn, Kent Youth and Family in downtown Kent, or Burien. So we didn't have, this is one of those recommendations where we didn't have ready-made solutions for the council, but it's a huge issue. And we wanted the city to explore all options. I will say, since April to now, Wapi FASA is starting treatment inside Federal Way near 272nd. So they have secured a location. So there is actually going to be something happening very soon, but we could definitely use more options, whether it's a new treatment or even just facilitating groups that happen inside city limits.
So will the school district then, if the students are enrolled in our schools, will they refer kids to this?
Yes.
And then covered by insurance or?
Covered by insurance or whatever ways it happens. I can't speak for any treatment provider's way of paying for it.
Okay. Then my last things, first of all, I want to thank you for all the work you've done. I really appreciate it.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Yarden, would you mind going out in the hallway, please, and talking to the folks with the 13th place? And just communicating with them. Thank you. Rendezvousing with them. Thank you. Please.
Oh, thank you. Doug is also on our Federal Way Domestic Violence Task Force, so he's a pretty busy guy and does a lot of work for us. I think these recommendations are excellent, and I'm excited to see this before us tonight. I also think this is a community issue, and the answer is not just with this city and not just with the school district, but with the entire community. In my free time, I like to watch King County Council meetings. They're on Channel 22. His eyes just went up. But it's fascinating to watch because they have some of the same issues that we have, only on a much bigger scale. And one of their council committees, their Justice Committee, has the POPS, Positive Outcomes Program, folks up there on a very frequent basis. And it's exciting to hear them talk about what they're doing here in Federal Way and have good things said about our city and good things said about what they're doing. They have done an amazing job in a very short time period, and we're very lucky that we have them. I would also say that to help some of the issues that have been proposed, we're going to have to make sure that we have stable housing and a stable food source for these kids. Because sometimes when crimes are being committed, it's because they don't have a place to live, they don't have food to eat, and they don't have those things that are so important. So there's a lot of work to do, but thank you so much for what you've done. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Deputy Mayor Burbridge.
Thank you very much. Doug, thank you as well for your hard work and the hard work done by all of the rest of the committee. It's very much appreciated, and I also want to add appreciation to my colleagues on the council who worked on this, the committee, the council committee. It's certainly going to take a great deal of collaboration to implement all of the recommendations, and it was such a thoughtful process, but we have excellent resources in our community, and certainly the school district is one of the main organizations that we'll be looking toward collaborating with, but we have a number of other resources as well. The Boys and Girls Club, certainly, in addition to other agencies, and also Valley Cities has been mentioned, in particular in relationship to providing some substance abuse, some substance abuse prevention and treatment. And I'm thinking as well that our Human Services Commission would be interested in taking a look at these recommendations as they're putting their work plan together for the future and determining where they would want to see the city's funding go in terms of the needs of the community.
Can I add something on that? So when we were crafting these recommendations, we never saw the city as owning many of these. We saw the city being a leader and putting their weight behind bringing people around many of these recommendations. So we don't want the city owning many of these. We want them to be a leader and use their bully pulpit to advocate for more resources for our kids.
Thank you.
That leads into my questions. I wanted to know who's going to administer the program. And because nowhere in here does it say who might take this over and run it. Is it going to be a nonprofit, or is it going to be?
I think one of the things we've got potential partnerships that we can develop, and that's one of the things Doug talked about. But the first 5 recommendations can be implemented by city staff without a significant additional resources. So it's with the balance of the recommendations that we would need to look at additional resources, and that's something that we would need to basically.
Okay, is there also money needed to implement this?
Absolutely.
On the
So
addition.
where's that coming from?
Yes, on the additional. On the first 5, we have the resources available to basically implement it.
Yeah, so where's the money going to come from for the additional?
We'll have to talk about that in the next budget cycle.
Yes.
What about the school district? Are they going to put anything in here?
Well, and that's why the next item on the agenda is probably, this is going to be one of the items on those joint meetings. That's it. I mean, we're going to need their partnership, and they've got a huge budget and a lot of kids.
And the school district did receive a $70,000 grant from Best Arts for Kids for restorative practices. So, I mean, they used the recommendations to write that grant, and that will involve community training as well as staff training. So they're not being ignored by the school district. These have started conversations throughout our community. And if you read the full report, Councilmember Duclos, each recommendation does include partners who have already either committed or potential partners for each recommendation.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I just have to say that you all guys rock. I appreciate the effort that you guys have put in this report. all the times that you guys have come together for countless debates, conversations, and the studying that you guys put into this. So I sincerely want to take the time to thank you guys. I know I joined you guys towards the tail end of your meeting, but I found it to be very interesting, especially because, in my future, I want to be a school counselor, and a lot of these issues hit up on that, and this is really, really important. And for me, while a number of them are really important, the social and emotional training is absolutely paramount, and it's really important. And I actually appreciate what Councilmember Honda said, just because of the fact that if kids are doing something that is out of the norm, there's a reason why. And if we can do everything that we can, and if this community can meet that need of theirs, they're going to be ready to be learners and ready to go for what they're doing and for their future. And I think that's really important. And, I've said this before, but mentoring, I cannot stress it, that mentoring is absolutely critical. It truly is. And I urge the council and I urge all, I'm going to use the words, pivotal partners, and in finding avenues to really support communities and schools. I know you were one of their mentor recruiting managers. I probably got the title wrong, but it's fairly close. But I want to do everything we can to support communities and schools, because I know they've worked really hard to get mentoring programs in the primary grade level, and I'm quite aware that we have mentoring programs in 6th, 7th, 8th, and on up, but we need it at the pre-K. And that's something that I've learned over the last year or so. And I know I've shared this before, but I'm going to do it again. And that's I am proud of what my wife does. She is a family support specialist with ECAP, and she works with a lot of low-income families. And I hear stories of kids that need that extra support. And so mentoring is absolutely a paramount, and I think it's really, really important. And the last comment I'll say, Mr. Mayor, is that I'm obviously very supportive of the establishment of youth employment and programs. I know that we've talked about it in our committee, and I've also talked about partnership with labor and unions, because I think that provides a unique hands-on opportunities for our kids, especially high schoolers, and I think that's really is important. So thank you for the effort that you guys have put in and the sweat that you guys put into this. I really am grateful, and I'm looking at you guys in the audience. Thank you so much.
Doug, can you quickly talk about yes?
Yeah. So these recommendations sparked several different conversations around youth employment in the community. We kind of pulled them all together and have created a framework, which we have taken to Dr. Campbell at the district, and she has greenlit, where we want to create job skills training and job fairs at 2 of our comprehensive high schools by the end of the school year, and hopefully more as we get under our feet. We know that, especially for kids who don't have the skills or the connections to get a job just through their family members or neighbors, we want to build those connections for them. So provide the training and the opportunities to create economic opportunity. That particular recommendation was written by one of our high school members, and it's important, and he recognized the need to just make that first connection, get that first job, keep that first job as a way to set yourself up for success. So like many other recommendations, there's a group that is already working on creating a plan that is not owned by the city, that doesn't even require city funding. What we need is a commitment to be at a job fair and help hire a few kids who really need that first job.
All right, Councilmember Cepeda, and then Councilmember Duclos.
Thank you. So I really wanted to say I do appreciate all the work that you have all put in, and thank you for still staying engaged in the process and making sure that we do follow through. And I also want to appreciate our council members for taking an active role and in making it happen immediately. So the follow through is amazing. And also, Cynthia, thank you for telling us or encouraging us that we're in this together, and that there are people that are going to be supportive, that are going to work with us and help providing not just the resources, but the expertise that are needed. And so I just wanted to say thank you for the process that you've gone through, and then now for it to come to fruition and to be something that we can actually realize and make happen. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Duclos.
Yeah, and I'm not being negative because years ago, when I was on the chamber board and president of the board, and they had tried to bring cities and schools to this town several times, and it failed. And they met with me, and I remember Bob Rogowski was on the board, and he came with me to the meeting, and we talked about it had to be a local initiative. It couldn't come from somebody coming from someplace else telling us what to do and how to set this thing up. But if they wanted to work with the chamber and a group from the chamber to do it, then that would be fine. So it started as cities and schools and then changed to communities and schools. That's how that came to Federal Way, way back when. So I'm not opposed to this. I want to support it. I want to reduce teen violence. Actually, I want to reduce violence in everybody, including myself. But I just want to make sure that we're not leaving out a key component, and that's the adults in the household. Some of them may need some kind of support in trying to help work with their children, especially if they're getting into trouble. And if we forget the home life and just concentrate on what's going on in the schools, it's not going to work. And I want it to be successful. So we need to look at the whole picture. The family structure has to be somewhat involved too.
Right, exactly. Okay. Councilmember Moore, do you have a motion?
Yes. For Isaiah, for our families, and for our community, Mr. Mayor, I moved approval of the proposed Violence Prevention Coalition Steering Committee recommendation as presented.
All right.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
No, Councilmember Moore?
Thank you so much. This is an important topic where there's a lot to say, and that's we heard the words earlier, roadmap. This is going to be my roadmap. As long as I'm a city council member here in Federal Way, this is something I'm going to be very much focused on. And because I know this is what's going to build a stronger community, a better community, and this is what I will stay committed to. So I wanted to put that out there, and again, thank you for all your efforts.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The recommendations as presented are approved. And now we move on to item C, establishment of City Council School Board Co-Committee. Councilmember Kopang?
Thank you, Mayor. When I was, before I got elected, I had the opportunity to serve as the chair of the Superintendent Search Committee. It was a group of citizens that worked together in collaboration with the school district to make recommendations on a new superintendent for our school district. And in that process, I got to know the school board and develop some relationships there. And so when I was elected to City Council, one of the first things that I did was reach out to Liz Drake, who is on the school board, and talk about how we could begin a more collaborative relationship. I know the mayor and the superintendent have a good relationship and collaborate on a regular basis, but I kind of felt like there was a disconnect between the council and the school board that we could work on creating. So I partnered with Deputy Mayor Burbidge and Councilmember Lydia Stefadosin to begin basically start that process by doing an ad hoc committee where we discussed over the last year in a quarterly basis a number of the issues that are affecting the city. Well, once we went through this Violence Prevention Coalition Steering Committee process, just the light bulb went on, and I said, really, I think there's an opportunity for us to work together in a more collaborative function, or fashion. So basically, the policy question tonight, and it's wordy, but should the City Council authorize the Deputy Mayor to appoint council members to a negotiating team to negotiate an interlocal agreement as authorized by RCW Chapter 39.34 with the Federal Way Public Schools to form a collaborative City Council School Board Co-Committee to address shared issues, such as those detailed in the Violence Prevention Coalition Steering Committee report, and to authorize staff to support the negotiating team in these negotiations. In negotiating the agreement, the negotiating team will be guided by the attached guidelines for the establishment of a City Council School Board Committee. And basically, understanding the importance of addressing the root causes of violence and the potential for a substantially better outcome by operating in partnership with the school district, The Parks and Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee, which again is, my fellow members are Councilmember Moore and Councilmember Lydia Sefa-Dawson. We collaborated on a discussion on how could we do this. And we discussed a number of different issues related to that. And then Deputy Mayor Burbidge was also involved, and I want to thank her for her collaboration. But again, we basically the catalyst for recommendation was the VPCSC recommendations, and understanding that we could not do as a city all that needed to be done to address this important issue on our own. While it's a catalyst, it is not the entire content of possible collaboration for us, and certainly would look at additional ideas. But again, in putting together this proposal, really wanted to emphasize the importance of collaboration. The proposed guidelines serve as a place to start the conversation and really intend to reflect the intended collaborative nature of the co-committee. We wanted to preserve institutional authority, so any policy recommendations made by the co-committee would be forwarded to the appropriate committee for each body for consideration, potential adoption. Approval by both bodies would be required for policy recommendations to be approved. Implementation would then be determined by the mayor, superintendent, and their respective staffs. Respective institutional processes needed to be respected as well. Membership appointments to the co-committee would conform to the bylaws of each body. There'd be shared leadership. The chair and the vice chair positions for the co-committee would rotate annually between the city council and school board, with the appointed chair from each body filling these positions. There'd be a shared agenda. Agenda setting would include the designated lead staff members from the city and school district, as well as the committee chair and vice chair, and would occur at least a week prior to the next scheduled meeting. This would be staff supported. Assigned staff from both city and school district would provide support to the co-committee, with additional staff attendance requested on an as-needed basis, based on the subject matter of each meeting. Now, in writing this proposal, or this particular recommendation or guideline for consideration, we are not going to tell the school district how to do their part of the bargain. It's a recommendation. I think we're leading in this proposal with what I believe is a good process on our end to truly support this co-committee. This would be a non-quorum body, just like every council committee and every school board committee. Because the school board is a committee of 5, or a board of 5, non-quorum would be 2 members. For the city council, because we're 7 members, we can have a non-quorum body of 3. So based on the recommended composition of 3 council members and 2 school board members, passage of any measure would require unanimity by the school board members and a majority of the council members. And basically by doing that, there's no way that the city can assert its will over the school board representatives in this process. There'd be regular meetings. Meetings would occur at least quarterly unless additional meetings are agreed to. All meetings of the co-committee would be public, and attendance by additional members of the school board and city council would be welcome. There would also be an annual commitment. The city council school board co-committee would have a 12-month term starting in January and would automatically renew unless one or both bodies voted to disband. Any questions?
Council, any questions? Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. I think it's a great idea. I've been trying to encourage our council and this school board to meet for a number of years now. I think that we have a lot of things to discuss. In this, I know that this is being driven by the Violence Prevention Committee recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
But I have some suggestions that we could talk about.
Sure.
So they would be discussion of school impact fees. I know that that's something.
I think there's a whole list.
There's a whole list. This is just my list.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Discussion of growth of the school district. We are growing rapidly, and over the last year we had a moratorium on multifamily. Part of it was, where do multifamily units exist, and where do new schools, where could they be? Written agreements with the schools and our parks, funding options for working together to upgrade Lakota Park. We've been trying to do that now for a while. I was at Lakota Park the other day. I really do want to get that moving. I think it needs to be done. But there's certainly a lot of things we can discuss with this school board. We both have Federal Way's best interest at heart. We're both working hard to make Federal Way a better place to live and to bring more families and businesses here, so.
I think those are great suggestions.
Okay. So, any other comments or suggestions? All right, Councilmember Sept, do you have a motion?
I move approval for the deputy mayor to appoint council members to negotiate an interlocal agreement with the Federal Way Public Schools as outlined in the guidelines for establishing a city council school board committee to address shared issues.
Second.
It's been a motion and the second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passes unanimously. All right. Now, moving on to item 7 of the item A, Council Bill 727, moratorium on the expansion or creation of self-storage facilities within the city. First, we will have a staff report by Doc Hanson, our planning manager, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council. I'm Doc Hanson, planning manager, here to provide you information on support for the moratorium. And as you're seeing right now, one of the biggest challenges I have whenever starting in new systems is learning about that new system to bring it up. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. The staff and the management has had some concern with the number of self-storage facilities that has increased within the city over the past several months. When I first got here in April, I also noticed that increase, and it was dramatic from other jurisdictions that I've been to. And what I wanted to do was present 2 slides that might indicate why this is necessary. Director Davis, after I brought up some of these numbers and checked with the staff, we came up with a chart that showed the growth in the population and also the growth in the self-storage facilities before the City of Federal Way was incorporated. It shows that the growth rate was approximately the same until 10 months ago. 10 months ago, in October, we started receiving applications and pre-applications for self-storage facilities at an alarming rate. One of the things that I did was evaluate the number of units per household that exist right now. Right now, we have an existing units of 0.13 units per household. With the proposed and amendments and additions, we would equal approximately 0.37 units per household. It's almost 14,000 storage units, self-storage units. We don't really know why this is happening, but we're asked, it's been asked for a moratorium so that we can actually evaluate this in greater detail. This gives you an idea of where these are actually located. The proposed facilities are noted in red, and the existing ones are in blue. What you will notice is that most of the blue ones exist within the central, they're not in the neighborhood commercial districts or the business or the neighborhood business districts or the commercial business districts. Suddenly they've changed. They're all going into the commercial districts. And we want to know why that is as well. We're suggesting that this moratorium go into place, or there's a possibility that this would go into place so that we can research this in greater detail. I wanted to only show you these two slides because I know that there's a number of questions that you have. So I would ask for any questions that you might have.
Councilmember Selsky.
Yes, thank you, Doc and Brian. I want to thank you, I guess, personally for taking this issue up when you first came here, doing the research, and coming up with something that is potentially a concern here. I really want to talk about 4 areas, some with questions. First of all, balance. Anytime we find something to have a potential to grow out of balance in the city, I think it's time to really step aside, take a deep breath, take a deep look at it, and see if it's time to change the direction we're going. And I think that's what we're here to talk about tonight. So, again, thank you for identifying this. Secondly, I want to talk about supply and demand. You talked about some statistics here where presently, or when you first started researching, the number of units, there was 1 unit per 8 households. Or excuse me, 1 unit per 8 households. And now we're going to go with potentially up to the 14,000 units, 1 unit per 3 households. That's what these ratios work out to. And so the question I have is supply and demand. Is there a present shortage of storage units identified in the city to satisfy the demand?
That's a good question, Councilman. We don't know that. That's one of the things that we would like to research so that we know what is in the demand. In researching other communities, I found that there were a number of communities that had 2 or 3. A couple of them even had 4 proposals within their jurisdictions. Some had none. But in looking at all the jurisdictions, I looked at 7 of them in the surrounding area, I noticed that we, in the city of Federal Way, have more proposed facilities than all of the other 7 jurisdictions I studied. Also, there's recently been a moratorium in the city of Paulsville for the same reason. So there's a real question in terms of what is demanded and what is expected. I know that in the city of Tacoma, which is part of our gateway, which are 2 of the areas that were being looked at that we want to research, there are no facilities, or there are very few facilities. So there's a possibility that some of these are being developed for the purpose of the servicing of other communities. So that's one of the things that we would like to research.
Okay, great. And the reason I asked that question, because my son had need of storing his household goods in one of these units for about 3 months, starting this past May, just a few months ago. And when he went out to research, or actually my daughter-in-law went out to research these places, there was many available and actually competing for his business. So that's with the number of units that we have now, which is 4,000, something like that. If we triple that or whatever, imagine, I can't imagine the demand escalating for those units much beyond what it is right now. So, but again, we'll let the research determine that and everything you guys are going to be looking at. Second thing I want to ask is ownership. With regard to the applicants, are the applicants for these units, do you know, the same owners as those that are owned already? Or are these new owners, new companies coming in?
Most of these are new owners.
Okay.
New developers and outside.
New developers. So there's no, as far as you know, nobody who already owns an existing one is, okay.
Not as far as we know.
Okay, good, thank you. That's good to know. And then the economics. How does the city benefit from rental of these units in terms of revenue?
There is an improved tax base. We do receive taxes from the development of these because it's an improved tax base. But we really don't know how much more tax base we would get from these being developed as neighborhood businesses, other types of neighborhood businesses. The other question we want to ask, especially in terms of our comprehensive plan, is how do they meet the policies that we have right now? Since most of these are going within neighborhood businesses and commercial businesses, do we want these particular businesses in these areas? And how do they affect other jurisdictions that do this? So our research would go not only within this area, like I did very quickly, but it would go into other areas and how it's affected businesses as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so those kind of fees, but with regard to sales tax, is there any other kind of revenue we derive in the city from the rental of that unit? Say it's $100 per space per month.
There's nothing we get from that other than the tax base.
Oh, okay,
The taxes from the improved properties.
Oh, the property taxes?
Yes.
Okay, the property tax, but there's no...
We receive no revenue.
Sales tax or anything. So that, I think, is what you mentioned. There's an opportunity cost here for building these units in the city. The opportunity cost of some other business coming in and establishing, its business there and deriving also, aside from property taxes, but sales taxes as well. And so that I see as an opportunity cost, and therefore another reason I think we really need to look at this. And then the last thing I want to mention is one of the applicants, I believe, who's already vested is at the the old Twin Lakes Albertsons. Everybody probably knows where that is, 21st Avenue
21st
and 336.
336.
So I talked to two of the business owners there that are adjacent in that other strip mall, and both of them definitely would prefer some kind of a retail establishment come in there because that would draw more people to that and therefore maybe to their businesses as well. But we do know that nobody has tried to get that particular property back in use. It's been at least 10 or 12 or maybe 15 years or so that Albertsons closed. So maybe putting this kind of an establishment there is applicable. And I see Director Johnson walking up.
Tim?
Thank you. Mayor, council members, I'd like to direct your attention that 2 years ago the mayor and I were intimately involved in multiple companies and had worked with a gentleman who stood here in November 2016 who was the broker of choice on that particular property and spoke to you about the help and assistance that he was getting from the city. And we had put the property owner and the broker in front of retailers on that. Now, for whatever reason, they never got back to us and told us that those negotiations had fallen apart, but we expected that they had. And the property owner was from California. They sold that property again to another investor from California who turned around and made this application. When I had spoken with them that we had active retailers interested in their property, they were not informed through any due diligence that had been performed by themselves or communicated to them. And so it was very disheartening for us because we had lined up several retailers for that site. And in a follow-up, Mayor, if I may, in a community meeting that was held that I believe you were all at in the Twin Lakes area, I'm going to go back a year, maybe a year and a half ago, the community had asked for a community center of some type to be built there because they felt that, since you were just talking about the youth today, that there wasn't a youth facility in the community. So it was even more disheartening for me as a staff member for you all to be able to deliver these products when it seemed like we were usurped in this process moving forward.
Okay, thank you for that update, Tim. And I apologize if you said something out of line. I wasn't on the council at that point, so I probably missed all that. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that I did talk to some business owners there, and I think that effort that you made is outstanding. So anyway, we'll see what happens here. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Burbridge, we're about 5 minutes away from 10 o'clock. Would you mind making a motion?
I move that we extend the meeting past past 10 o'clock this evening.
Second.
All right, it's been a motion and a second to extend past our normal 10 p.m. ending time. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Was that
Opposed?
10:05 we extended to?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Councilmember Kopang, then Councilmember Duclos.
Doc, thank you for your presentation. A couple questions. The first one is, why 12 months? And the second would be, can you list the different things that you'll be researching and different codes, different taxation plans, whatever. What is going to be involved in this process while the moratorium is in effect?
The 12 months is for a thorough research, and as I mentioned, we'd like to look at other jurisdictions and what other areas have done. It's also to come up with a conclusion, something to bring back to you that is not just a Band-Aid. We're looking at design standards. We're looking at not just zoning itself or placing something within a zone, but other types of actions that could be beneficial. We're not trying to get rid of self-storage units. We're trying to see how they fit in within the community. And so for the 12 months, we want to make sure that we're thorough in the answers that we give to you with future questions. Because right now, I can answer some questions related to what I believe is happening, but we haven't researched that to verify that.
Okay. And why 12 months and not 6 months?
Because it takes a long time to do that. Okay. We want to make sure, it could be shorter, and if it is shorter, we'll definitely bring it back to you, because I know that the city and staffs don't like dealing with moratoriums either.
Councilmember Duclos.
Well, I was going to address the 12 months because we did one on affordable housing too for 6 months, and then had to go ahead and extend it for another 6 months. And I think that's coming up pretty soon, isn't it?
It's all done.
It's all done?
Yeah.
Okay. But, well, anyway, I want to have enough time on this, and, you know, this is up around my area too, where that Albertson their store was, and there's nothing that's ever gone in there, and I would hate to see self-storage going in there because it is a commercial district with stores, and I'd like to see some other, we just got a new CVS drugstore on the corner up there across the street from it, and I really would like to look at this more, just like we looked at the moratorium on housing. 6 months wasn't enough, so it went another 6 months. Let's give us the time to really study this and investigate it and see what better use we could make of that area.
And to make to add on to that, just so that everybody knows what they want with the land and what kinds of things can incorporate those self-storage facilities.
Exactly. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Burbridge, then Councilmember Moore.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doc, for your observations on this, and also those of staff, and paying attention to what's happening. That's very important to all of us. But and with relationship to the end, to the length of the moratorium, it's my understanding that we could end it once the necessary work is done.
That is correct.
It's allowing enough time. And also, I want to point to something that's been mentioned a little bit, and that is comparison with other cities. And it's my understanding, I just would like a clarification, that part of the work will be attending to comparison with other cities and their regulations to see where we fit in the broad picture.
We've already done that a little bit briefly, but we'd like to go into that more detail. We could provide you some information related to that.
Thank you.
All right, Council, any other, that's right, Councilmember Moore.
Thanks so much, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep this brief. It was about a year ago that I found myself in the mayor's economic development director's office, Tim Johnson. We were kind of chatting a little bit, and we were talking about this very issue of the storage facilities coming into, in this case, Albertsons. But we were talking about storage facilities, and I'm glad that today we're addressing this issue and taking a closer look at it, because I felt like at that time a year ago, I was starting to see a problem. And so I'm thankful that we have great, smart, incredible staff that are addressing issues. Thank you.
Me too. And he's our economic development director. I'm reminded of that, exactly. Thank you. Councilmember Honda, then Councilmember Asefa Dawson.
Thank you. And thank you to Doc and whoever answered my questions that I've been asking. I'm concerned with the 12-month moratorium, and one of the reasons I'm concerned with the 12-month moratorium is we recently had some zoning changes that were proposed, and we're going to be able to be voting on those in October or November, which seems like a very fast timeline. And I'm wondering if this moratorium could be for 6 months, and if you needed to extend it, then you could extend it. I think the shorter time a moratorium is, the better for the public.
Mr. Mayor, if I could chime in here real quick.
Please.
on the 12-month proposal. That was something that I advocated for.
And Brian, let me interrupt you. For
Yep.
those watching at home, it's Brian Davis, our Community Development Director. Brian, please proceed.
Thank you. The 12-month duration was something that staff advocated for in this instance. If you recall, in the multifamily moratorium, it was 6 months. And we did come back and ask for more. The reason for that is because during that time, all of our long-range planning resources were devoted to that very issue, and there were no other, there was no available time to look at other issues, such as the zone changes that you mentioned, which are now just being brought to your attention, even though they've been sitting for a year or perhaps even more. But because we had to concentrate within that 6-month period, there were other projects that fell by the wayside. And so by having this issue, which I don't think is going to be as intensive as the multifamily issue, but is nonetheless going to be a resource requirement for staff, the 12-month does allow us flexibility to address this issue, zone changes, sound transit, the winery, a number of other long-range planning efforts that we have going on right now. And if we were to truncate this to 6 months, then some of those other projects would have to be put on delay to devote more time to this issue.
So, thank you. So one of my questions today was if you tracked vacancy rates for self-storage units, and you said you did not. In this process, will you be looking at that and looking and comparing us to other cities?
We'll be contacting other self-storage units, areas, to find out their vacancy rates. That's one of the questions I'd like to ask them.
And maybe I didn't hear you right, but did you say the city of Tacoma does not have any self-storage units?
I said they didn't have any self-storage units. I meant they don't have any additional ones. And they have a greater population. It's harder to get self-storage units within the city of Tacoma than it is here in Federal Way.
One of my questions today was, let me see. You have analyzed other cities and how they've handled the request for self-storage, and you were going to talk tonight about the processes that we already have in place for analyzing.
Excuse me.
So my question was, I'll read it to you. What are the vacancy rates on the current self-storage units? What is the current need? And how have other cities handled the increase in request for these? And the reply was, we don't know that vacancy rates. Other cities have more in-depth analysis built into the permitting processes for self-storage facilities. And you were
Right,
gonna
and
talk
that was one that I answered to you, Councilmember Honda. So what we found, just at least very preliminarily, is that other cities have a, for instance, we talk about use process 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and on up. And with each increasing number, there's an added level of notice to the public, public hearing requirements that are involved with an application. For self-storage right now, we're at the lowest possible for many of these, the lowest possible review. So it's real easy in Federal Way to get self-storage units. Our initial analysis, and again, this we'd need some more analysis to really get you some better information. But just initially looking at other cities, it's more involved. And so that's why we suspect that we're seeing more in Federal Way versus other cities. And so one possible outcome of this study is that we don't necessarily restrict self-storage, but that there is a more in-depth process to evaluate, is it compatible not just with the zoning, but the neighborhood and the overall goals of the city, whereas right now that it doesn't really take that into account.
Thank you. And I'm concerned that if we have a moratorium on self-storage units, that the people who might use those might not have someplace to store their stuff and might have to go to another city, since we don't know the vacancy rates, and I'm concerned how that would affect our citizens.
Councilmember Honda, if I may.
Sure.
I have a storage unit. I also have a theory about the use of storage units, and I've actually done some research and evaluation from the generations that are using those. And I'd like to go to these storage units and also ask these questions. Who uses them? Most of the storage units that I've contacted in terms of the facilities are boomers, my age. It's because they've been married a long time, such as I have. They're trying to get rid of stuff out of their house, but somebody doesn't want to get rid of it. They got to find some place to put it. I haven't had a storage unit for 20 years, and then all of a sudden we want to remodel a space, and so we rent 100 square feet. And there's a lot of boomers that are doing that. So now I go to the millennial generation. There's a lot of people that are saying they're having smaller spaces to live in. Therefore, they're going to need this type of storage space. In small discussions I've had with millennials, people in the planning profession, other professions, they don't buy the stuff we did. And there's a lot of people that are within that generation that are not asking for those. There are some that are. So I see, and I'd like to verify this through this type of research, that it could possibly be shifting. And actually, with the storage unit that I got a very good deal because they were very empty.
Okay. All right. Are there any more questions?
I would just say one more thing. I would support a 6-month, but not a 12-month moratorium.
All right. Councilmember Sept.
Yeah, thank you. I think a lot of things that I was going to bring up were already discussed, but one of them being who it would adversely impact. I also use a storage unit because I live in an apartment. So I don't know how many people that live in my complex or all the other multifamily units do use public storage. So your answer, you've researched it and I have not. So I will accept that. But, and then with the moratorium, I was also thinking 6 months. And so that would be great. And you've done a lot of the work already, it seems like. So I think 6 months might work. But my question, I do have a question. So with the proposed ones, even if we do put a moratorium, it's not going to affect them, right? We're going to move forward with their proposal.
It's a good question. I'm sorry I didn't cover that in a presentation. There are 4 vested ones, 4 vested facilities right now. Those 4 vested facilities will still be processed. There were 5 pre-applications. The 4 that are vested equal approximately 3,700 units based upon our assumptions. That's about 80% of what we already have. The additional ones would add that much more. So in terms of the moratorium itself, whether it's a 6-month or a 12-month, really isn't going to hurt the market in terms of the amount of storage facilities that can be built in the next 1 or 2 years. And also I'd like to point out that most of these pre-applications that we're dealing with are not the simple self-storage units that we've been looking at and that we're familiar with. Many of the developers that had self-storage facilities when I first came into the profession were just holding ground. We have facilities that are being proposed that are 2 and 3 stories high. These are large structures. The average storage facility that was developed in Federal Way in 1980, 1990 had an average of about 500 units in them. Now, the ones that are being proposed are about an average of 800 units. So these are kinds of things that we need to take care to look at. The city of Renton, for example, has a design standard that actually didn't pencil out for 1 storage unit because they had retail space on the frontal of the street. Unfortunately, this developer purchased a piece of property that was fronted on 4 streets. So that developer would have to have retail space covering the storage space all the way around the block. He decided not to take that action. But Renton also has 4 storage units that is willing to put the retail space in front of these storage units because they're only fronting 1 street. Those are the kinds of things that we'd like to look at in terms of the character of Federal Way and our policies that have been adopted in terms of how those meet those policies.
Okay. Thank you. And I hope part of your analysis could be maybe surveying the public because of what you stated around who uses public storage. I use it because of lack of space. So I wonder how many people are going to continue using, and the way people purchase items is different. I mean, so I wonder if that's going to be part of your analysis in terms of future usage. But yeah, that being said, I think
There'll be statements in terms of generations and purchases.
yeah, I think that's good to know. But okay, thank you so much.
Councilmember Honda.
Thank you. Legally, the folks that have come in for a pre-vesting appointment, is that what you call it?
Pardon? I'm sorry.
The folks who have come in to talk to you about this, who are not vested yet, since they've talked to the city, legally, where do we stand? I realize they're not vested, but is there a concern?
If there's a moratorium that is passed, we would not accept a completed application.
I understand that, but since they have come to us and they've said they have an interest, and they've even shown where the interest is, would we have an issue?
I believe that the developers that were intending on having and had planned on having storage units on those facilities and spent the time, as we did, giving them pre-applications, they would be not only disappointed but probably angry. But in terms of the other development community, you're going to have a number of people that are also going to feel very relieved by having a moratorium while we investigate this issue. So I can't say what they will do, but we will notify them and indicate that this moratorium is in effect if you decide to pass this. And that will not be a pleasant call for me to make, but I will make it.
All right.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Burbidge.
I would just add my comment that I think what we're looking at is trying to provide a balance in the different kinds of business in our city, and we've learned that we have rather recently and somewhat suddenly have a strong interest in more providing more self-storage units in Federal Way, which would greatly increase the proportion in our city. And to me, that is a matter of concern, and I very much would like to see this proposed measure pass so that our staff can provide us with the information that we need to make a good decision.
All right. Thank you. Seeing no other lights on, Councilmember Selski, do you have a motion to suspend the rules?
I do have a motion. I move to suspend City Council Rule 2.2 subsection 8 to allow first reading and enactment of the ordinance in one meeting.
It's been motion and a second. Is there any discussion with regard to suspension of council rules? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matter passes unanimously. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 727, moratorium on the expansion or creation of self-storage facilities within the city. An ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, imposing a 12-month moratorium on the expansion or creation of self-service storage facilities, including without limitation the city's acceptance, processing, and approval of land use and building permit applications in the neighborhood business, community business, and commercial enterprise zoning districts within the city, setting forth preliminary supportive findings, amending the Planning Commission work program, setting a date for a public hearing, establishing a work plan, declaring an emergency, and providing for an immediate effective date.
All right, Councilmember Selski, do you have a motion?
I do. I move approval and adoption of the proposed ordinance.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I do have one more thing I'd like to say.
Please.
Yeah, I definitely support the idea of having a 12-month moratorium imposed versus a 6-month, and then doing an extension. From the Land Use and Transportation Committee, the Planning Commission, and I do know the Planning Department, there's a lot of things on the work plan that need addressing. And I think Brian talked briefly about this a moment ago. We do know we have 13 individual requests for changes to the comp plan. That's more than we've ever had. I know the Planning Department is deeply involved in that. That process, I believe, doesn't end until November. So they're going to be busy for at least for 2 months with that, amongst all the other things that they have on their plate. So I just don't think 6 months is going to work. 12 months is going to be necessary for us to get this done.
All right. Thank you. Any other, Councilmember Safadosan? Okay. Councilmember Duclos?
No, I'm just waiting to vote.
Council, any other comments or discussion on that point?
I would just really encourage a 6-month moratorium.
All right. Okay, yeah, sorry, I was waiting for you to turn on your light if you wanted to talk. Okay, hearing no other discussion, there is a motion and a second for the 12-month proposal as suggested. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
City Clerk?
Deputy Mayor Burbidge?
Aye.
Councilmember Safadosan?
Aye.
Councilmember Selski?
Aye.
Councilmember Honda?
Nay.
Councilmember Kopeng?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Duclos?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
All right, that's great. Council reports. Councilmember Safadosan.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this evening's meeting was just totally full and packed with different issues and topics, and I really appreciated all the discussions. And it's unfortunate that the day center is experiencing what it's experiencing, and I wonder if they have expectations, something that's established already, or if there's even a contract, because I would hate for that program to go away, and hopefully there's a way to really encourage the participants to own it, take care of it. And usually when you have, even not just businesses, but when you have programs, you know, there's an expectation and something that you facilitate with the participants. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to educate, if it's not already being done, that is, the participants to what not to do in their community. Or the consequences are such that the program could end. So if it's not already something in place, I would like to suggest that.
We'll communicate with them.
Okay. And then I just want to thank Councilmember Marco Pang for your leadership and getting the violence prevention recommendations and the proposed City Council School Board joint partnership. I remember when I was appointed to council, one of the things I really said I would like to see happen was this partnership, and so I'm glad to see it happen and to be a part of that process. And then the FEMA training that you went on, Mayor and team, I think couldn't have come at a better time considering what's going on in Texas and the potential of another hurricane coming this way towards Florida, if it hits Florida. And so I hope there are ways, again, to educate us on the next steps, and doing it sooner than later would be very beneficial to our community, I think. So I would like to see what that would look like for our community. So I look forward to that also. And yeah, that's it for me.
Great.
Thank you.
Councilmember Selsky.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Theresa, Yvonne, the Director of the Performing Arts and Events Center, and thank you for walking back in on cue here from the outside. But I want to thank you for an outstanding ribbon cutting and grand opening 2.5 weeks ago. It was well organized. It flowed. People were busy with activities. Nobody looked bored the whole time I was there. Lots of talking, discussion, thorough enjoyment of that activity. Everybody I could see was thoroughly enjoying it. So, and I did notice a lot of people there as well. It was overwhelming. So, good job setting that up, and whoever else was involved in that, your staff, anybody else. It was just really an enjoyable event. So, thank you. And then I know my wife and I both look forward to the gala and the performance of Rain this coming Saturday night. Been a long time coming, and it's just going to be a tremendous start to this Performing Arts and Event Center. So congratulations and thank you. An important event, there's many important events always, but an important event for a very, very near and dear organization in our community is coming up. It's the Reach Out Annual Breakfast fundraiser for the Reach Out Men's and Women's Overnight Shelter. That will take place at the Christian Faith Center on Tuesday, September 19th at 7 in the morning. Highly encourage everybody to get involved in this. We've been talking about the day center. We talk about all these needs that we have in our community. This particular one is for the night shelter that that Reach Out runs during the winter, and it's a tremendous need. We need to raise funds for this organization so that they can, in fact, staff and put on these overnight shelters for both men and women over the winter season. So I highly encourage everybody to come. Again, it's at the Christian Faith Center, Tuesday, the 19th of September at 7 o'clock. And lastly, the next Land Use and Transportation Committee meeting is scheduled for this coming Monday, September 11th at 5 o'clock right here in Council Chambers. And that's it.
Councilmember Honda.
Thank you very much. On February 14th of 2017, Wayne Bergman, who is a young man in our community, earned his Eagle Scout Award. And on Sunday, August 27th, my husband and I, and my husband is an Eagle Scout, we're proud to be able to be at his ceremony where he was awarded his Eagle in front of his troop and his friends and relatives, which is always a really amazing ceremony and very moving. These young men work really hard to attain the rank of Eagle Scout. I'd like to encourage all of us up here, if you haven't gone back to sign the banner for a National Night Out, it's on the back table, and Betty Taylor is still waiting back there. It will be laminated, so this is your one time to do that. Then I have a couple just thoughts. According to the Seattle Times, the state budget will have a reduction in funding for mental health and substance abuse. And in King County, the King County executive estimates that's about an 8% reduction in funding. When we clear our homeless camps out, the folks have nowhere to go, and so they kind of wander around Federal Way until they find another area to go into. And with homelessness, we really need to have mental health and substance abuse treatment, because a lot of folks who are homeless suffer from those illnesses. I certainly don't agree that the homeless have a right to go into any piece of property and destroy it. But when we clear a camp out, I think it's really important that we have somewhere or something to direct these folks to. When the camp was cleared out on 336, I was asked to come to the day center that afternoon, and I talked with some of the folks who were there. And one lady said she'd lived back in the woods there for 9 months, and all of her things were being cleared out. And she was very open about the fact that crime was going to increase because people needed to get tents and sleeping bags and other items, and that it was going to be a bad weekend in Federal Way. I don't know if it was or not. I have not asked, but I would really encourage the city, when a camp is going to be cleared out, that we work with our service organizations and we have a plan. Reach out. Thank you for mentioning their breakfast. At this point, is only able to provide shelter for 6 months out of the year. And that doesn't start till October. And so we certainly need a plan for homeless. It's not okay what is happening now with camping in the woods, starting fires, and doing the things that they're doing, but we need a better plan than what we have. Just my opinion. My other concern is last week an announcement was made that President Trump's proposed federal budget would impact our light rail project here in Federal Way. And the state is also talking about doing some things with ST3. And so I'd like to ask that we can get Sound Transit back down to Federal Way to talk about what would happen if we did not get the federal funding, and if the state did decrease their fund or try to decrease the funding for ST3. $500 million is quite an impact on the Angle Lake to Federal Way light rail extension. Our sub-area, I'm not sure, could come up with that money on our own, and I'm concerned that we need to know what's going on sooner than later. And a recent article in the Federal Way paper talked about diversity. And this is something that I'm passionate about. I'll just use a word. Federal Way is a really beautiful and diverse city. Our schools have over 100 languages spoken. As past chair of the Arts Commission and the Diversity Commission, I have enjoyed having the opportunity to build bridges between the city and our diverse population. And as a council member, I've continued to do that. On Tuesday, August 1st, I would have to say that connections were built at Town Square Park. We held our first citywide National Night Out event in Federal Way. Thanks to our partnership with school board member Claire Wilson, Pastor Joe Bowman, and Betty Taylor, we held an event where diversity was celebrated. Superintendent Dr. Campbell was very helpful to our committee. She asked the principals if they could provide diverse and cultural events for our National Night Out, and she did. The principals came forth. We had dancers from China, Peru, Mexico. We had hip-hop dancers. We had young, old, and in between that were enjoying the night. We really are a diverse city, and I really do think that on August 1st, 2017, we had a night in Federal Way where we celebrated our diversity. One thing I did hear from our performers, and a lot of our performers were school children and their parents, was that they looked up at the pack and they said they want to perform on the stage in the pack. And so my hope and my dream is that one day, hopefully this year, we can get all those performers plus more and hold a diversity event in the PAC, free of cost to the performers and free of cost to the citizens. I think it's doable. I think it would be really exciting, and it would really show how awesome Federal Way is. It was a really great night. Sign the banner, and we can give it to Target at the next meeting because they came through in a big way, and it's great to have that support. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Honda, we have had a citywide national night out for years and years. How many years, Chief, do you think we've had a citywide national night out with over 20, 30 locations?
Probably 19, 20 years.
Exactly. I think it's important for the record to know, excuse me, it's important for this community to understand that we've had a citywide national night out for 19 years. This was not the first year. This was the first, excuse me, you're not recognized. This was the first year we had it at Town Square Park. So I think facts are important, the truth is important, and I think it's important to recognize that over 30 individual streets and neighborhoods have had this going on in their community for years and years, almost 2 full decades. Councilmember Kopeng?
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to thank Theresa Yvonne for a great grand opening at the PAC. I think very excited about the prospects that we have for that city and the economic development that's going to occur because of the people coming to Federal Way. We are definitely creating a downtown, and between the Performing Arts and Event Center, the Town Square Park, new hotel, the stairway bridging the two, the park and the Performing Arts and Event Center, as well as the ST3 coming south. We are creating a pedestrian-friendly town center that is going to be a part of our community for years to come. The question will not be where is downtown. It'll be, I want to get there. How do I get there? And we'll certainly have ways for them to get there. But I just look at the things that are happening now in our city, and I'm very encouraged. I was looking at, I think all of us, our hearts go out to the people of Houston and what they're going through. And I tell you, I was really impressed. We heard some negative stories about looting, but what I kept seeing over and over again and hearing about was how community members came together to help each other out. Race wasn't an issue. Economics was an issue. It really was about people helping people. And that combined with what we did tonight with the Violence Prevention Coalition Steering Committee recommendations brought back to my mind that night when we had the emergency meeting to talk about what was happening in our community and how there was the anger and the frustration. But that meeting concluded with the community coming together and finding ways to look for solutions. And again, that didn't come from us, although that was certainly something that we were interested in. That came from the community itself as they continue to talk, as they continue to basically, it was kind of an interesting conversation at that time because we had people that were angry, they were casting blame, other people were saying no, and then the mood shifted based on comments that were made, and in the end, we left with a united purpose to address violence in our city. And again, I think of Federal Way, I think of our diversity, I think of a respect that we really do have for one another and how we do create solutions. And I think it's such an important aspect of who we are as a city. I really think it defines us. And I continue to be proud of our city and the efforts that we make to transcend any trends in the negative and really find ways to create solutions. Another thing that was an example of diversity was the Desna Cup event that we got to go to, some of us attended after the Performing Arts and Event Center grand opening. Great group of people that basically decided that they want to have an event to bring their community together of Ukrainians and Russians, but basically open it up to the entire community. I went there along with the mayor, Councilmember Honda, I know Councilmember Moore, you were there. A lot of fun. Lydia, you didn't make it to that one. Okay, but anyway, a lot of fun. I actually got to I mean, we all got to partake, but they had roasted lamb and roasted chicken and roasted beef. It was outstanding. And then I also got to try a delicious non-alcoholic beer, which they were promoting. I was the only one brave enough to try it, though, I think. But anyway, we had, it's again, a great event, but again, one more example of diversity in our community. The Lions Car Show, I just want to briefly mention how much fun that was. And again, I think that the Lions know how to play in the city and create great events, and brought in people from all over South King County. Some great looking cars, a great community event, and it just was so appreciative for the Lions and their efforts. I also wanted to recognize Integrity Life Church and Pastor Joe Bowman and the backpack event they had at the Ron Samwith EX3 Boys and Girls Club. They basically advertised that they were going to give away backpacks to kids going back to school. And again, a great event. They've done it for years. They continue to do it. And again, it's just about them giving back to the community that they are a part of. No agenda other than just being a hand extended to people that need it. And again, a great event. Also, finally wanted to remind everybody the Parks and Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Commission committee meeting is going to be on the 12th, next Tuesday, the 12th at 5 o'clock in the Heilbus room. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I want to take the time to thank you and the Chief of Police. One of the greatest and awesome opportunities that we get as elected officials is to listen and to act. We all know Chris, who is a prominent photographer here in Federal Way, and he's has been sharing with me the challenges that he's had at his business that are related to drug use and essentially sleeping right next door to his business and doing other things that I don't want to name that are pretty sad. And I've also connected with a pizza shop owner who is a great guy, and he's also had to deal with the same thing. And so after hearing and listening to their concerns, I wrote an email to the chief and to the mayor and to the chair of the Public Safety and Parks Committee, and I'm pleased that there's a lot more focus. And I look forward to getting updates on that because we cannot have business be driven away by activities that should not be happening in the very beginning. So I'm grateful for your efforts, Chief, and for all that you're doing, and for your officers that are paying close attention in that area. And Mayor, thank you for the meeting that you had with me and for recognizing that there's an urgency in this factor, and it's not just in this area of 99 and 312th, but it's in other areas as well. So I look forward to seeing more results, in the coming months as we address this problem. Tomorrow, I don't know if anybody knows what tomorrow is, but tomorrow is the first day of school in the Federal Way Public Schools. And so I want to wish everybody a happy first day of school. And I want to wish my sister-in-law, Claire Anderson, for her first day. She'll be going to Illahee. So good luck to you, Claire. And moving forward, I just want to take the time to reiterate how important it is that we have a good relationship with our schools. I think that's really important. I want to do our best to continue to include them in everything in a timely manner. And so I thank Mark Copain for your leadership on this effort. And I just want to encourage for there to be as much collaboration as possible with our schools, not just in policies, but events and any other opportunities. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents and just encourage the staff and the mayor and the council and the city and whomever to really reach out to our schools and put that partnership into practice. And I know that we've done a good job, but there's always opportunities where we can always improve. Furthermore, Chick-fil is opening up, as we heard earlier in the mayor's report. I am excited. Can't wait till I get my chicken burger. So hopefully
that'll be okay. I'm looking at my colleague, Bob Selsky. He's a nutritionist, and so he'll probably tell me not to eat that, but I will probably ignore him. So I encourage you to go and stop by there. And I know that in talking with many people, traffic is of concern, so I'm more than optimistic that we've got that. That we're considering that as they're opening up. I'm not sure. It's just a question that I have. And another question that's been asked I wanted to put out in my comments is lighting and trees. And so I look forward to emailing Marwan and the mayor on that. I've heard it twice in the last 2 weeks of that being concerned, of trees being overgrown and it being hard to see. With that, Mr. Mayor, I will end my report.
All right, Councilmember Duclos.
Oh, sorry. No. I had the privilege of attending the donor reception for the PAC because I did contribute personally to it, and before its official opening, and it was very, very well attended. It was catered by the people in the kitchen, and it was fantastic. We had a tour of the facility, and I got to sit in the seats that I had purchased. And I have to tell you, they're the most comfortable seats I've ever sat in a situation like that. The building itself is absolutely beautiful and exquisite. The sound system is fabulous, and our piano, which is no longer in the lobby, was up there, and we had a master playing the piano for us for a while. And standing out in front of the building, you have the most beautiful view of Mount Rainier that I've ever seen. It is absolutely gorgeous from there. It's a beautiful facility. It was a long time in coming. I remember when she was council member Burbidge and I shared an office, and we were looking at there were two proposals actually we had at that time, one for a performing arts center and one for a conference center. And I read both of them, and I turned to then council member Burbidge, and I said, I wonder if we could combine these two. And she said yes, and we went up to, what was the name of the, McIntyre Hall.
In Mount Vernon.
In Mount Vernon. We did a field trip, several of us on a bus from Federal Way, one of the Federal Way ones. And we went up and we looked around and we saw how they did it. I wasn't that impressed with it, of the structure itself. But they did have a wonderful local area college that did a lot of performing arts and things like that over there. So we toyed more with the idea of combining them into one, but I wanted to make it different what they had, and we did. And I'm telling you, it is absolutely gorgeous. I am so proud to have been a part of that from the very beginning. And I know we took some grief from some people on buying the property to begin with, but it would have been nicer if we could have built it during the recession because we would have saved several $1 million, but that didn't happen. It is here, it is beautiful, it's going to be here for a long time. It's going to help us redefine our downtown. With a hotel coming in, that's going to help over there. And if we get the grand staircase in, that thing is going to be one beautiful location. And Town Square Park, which I will be at tomorrow to do my mile walk again. Every Wednesday I go there and do my mile walk and see what's going on. It's a beautiful park. This summer it has been, families with their children have been playing and having a good time and having picnics over there, and there's some people that have exercise classes going on. It's just an amazing thing. So we've done a heck of a lot here. I also attended a reception for our finance director's brother, who was here visiting. He's a judge, right? A day?
Supreme Court.
Supreme Court, yeah, Supreme Court. And it was nice listening to him. And by the way, you're the most handsome of the two. And you can tell him I said that. But he was a very, very nice individual and talked about what he was doing and had visiting Federal Way. And it was a wonderful, about a very nice hour and a half visit with him. And with that, I will say that's the end of my.
All right, Deputy Mayor Burbidge.
I will try to keep this short. The next meeting of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee is a week from tomorrow, Wednesday, September 13th at 10 a.m. And I'll mention briefly, I think all the council members have been notified, but just to make sure that Sound Cities Association is looking for a South King County member for the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and the deadline for applying is this Friday, the 8th of September. And Councilmember Duclos served on this committee previously very ably. Yes, yes. And I also want to thank Theresa, Yvonne, and her fine staff, and so many other city staff and wonderful volunteers as well who ensured that the ribbon cutting came off so beautifully. It was a stellar event, along with the open house all afternoon. There were so many who came and enjoyed that thoroughly, and yes, the acoustics are outstanding, along with so many things already mentioned about the facility, and we're all looking forward to the gala this Saturday evening, and hope that some additional folks can snap up those remaining tickets for the performance of Rain in tribute to the Beatles. Also want to point to, along with others, the leadership of Councilmember Kopang for his work on the violence prevention process and responding to the committee's recommendations, along with the committee members, Councilmember Moore and Councilmember Asefa Dawson. And also want to mention there's a upcoming 9/11 Memorial Remembrance on September 11th at the South King Fire and Rescue Memorial in front of Fire Station 64 at 3700 South 320th. And I believe that is at 1, or is it 12:30? 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. Thank you very much. Also, on Wednesday, September 13th, Sound Transit is putting on a Link Light Rail open house so that we can all learn about the project and its timeline. This will be at the community center, so that's Wednesday, September 13th from 4 until 7. And some other things have already been mentioned for Saturday, September 16th, the Puget Sound Energy event, Safe at Home at Walmart at 9 in the morning, and the Mayor's Day of Concern for the Hungry at various grocery stores from 10 to 2 the same day. And then our Federal Way Symphony is sponsoring the first Blues Festival in Federal Way at Town Square Park. And that's from noon until 8 p.m. That's Saturday, September 16th at Town Square Park. And also that day is a second open house by Sound Transit for Link Light Rail, but that one will be at Highline Community College in Building 2 at the campus there. And that's my report. Thank you very much.
We are adjourned. Thank you.